Hey everybody, welcome to Tone Talk with Mark Uzansky and Dave Friedman. How are you? It's Friday night. It's been a long week. I'm looking forward to the weekend. We've got a great special guest tonight. We've got Dylana Nova Scott from Third Power Amplification. How are you doing, Dylana?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited. Got my bourbon here, ready for the party.
Yes, actually, let's do
Because we're
it.
going to show
Okay,
and tell here.
Let's do a
Alice,
instead of
cheers.
just cheersing our glasses, we're going to
Very nice
cheers
to
our
meet you.
bottles.
Yes, exactly. Dave, what do you got? You got the Alice in Chains bottle.
Alice in Chains whiskey, which someone was very nice to give to me.
Yes. Now, wasn't there some kind of like it spent 10 more years in a tequila, something you said?
Aged in tequila barrels. So
There you go.
hey, the best of both worlds.
Yes.
Yeah, well, cheers, everybody. I'm pouring my glass. So just so anybody is a fan of the show, I haven't opened this bottle since I think the George Metropolis episode was like episode number 2. So it's like 3 years old. And so anyway, cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, shit, that's strong. It's got a...
Mm-hmm.
Woo.
No, that's smooth.
Oh, it's good. Trust me. But for me, I don't normally do this. So how's everybody's week? Dylana, how was your week? Staying at home.
Yeah. Like every other week for what, 6 weeks now?
Yeah.
You get, I went from stir crazy. You kind of don't believe it, and then it's happening. Then it kind of becomes a new normal, and then you're like, damn, will this ever end? And I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that this is normal.
Right.
And I'm probably going to do some level of this for probably the next year and a half. I've just kind of, because I don't want to catch this thing.
Yeah. I agree with you. Now, you're in Nashville. Now, haven't they really kind of opened up a little bit?
Well, today was the first day that some restaurants are opening up and with limited capacity. I wanted to drop by Best Buy and pick up some electronics accessories. I was going to try to, up my game for the show, but instead I've got a 57 here. But it was curbside delivery only, and you needed to put your order in long before my spur of the moment, motivation for today. But Broadway's still shut down. As far as I know, there's nobody's doing gigs, and that was a heartbreaker. I had a show April 12th. I had shows in California and Denver. I was supposed to play. That's canceled. A show in LA. I was probably gonna. That's canceled in August, but I was gonna, be down there in Hollywood, and a tour in Australian tour. This was probably going to be my most active year in 5 years, just as an artist, but it's all shelved now.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. It's tough. Tough for everybody.
It'll be interesting to see what happens,
Yeah.
with all the shows and everything. It'll be interesting. I actually sort of think that people are getting really stir crazy, and they're going to go nuts when it opens up again.
I agree.
And yeah, so we'll see.
I'm popping this link over to a couple of the social medias to get people out.
Yeah, please do that. Unfortunately, I can't send it on Facebook. There's an issue with Facebook for me right now. So.
Oh, okay. I've got it.
Okay, cool.
So there it goes.
Yeah, I'm still working. I'm still home. So they haven't opened up anything here. And Dave, you're still at home too, right?
Yeah, everything is shut down, so to speak. It's funny when it first happened, you saw no cars and no nothing, and it was really quiet. Mm-hmm. And now over time, it's like, well, there's sure a lot more cars on the street. Where's everyone going? But everything's shut down really, other than your liquor store, grocery store, food places that you can pick stuff up. Or
I know people have just gone out for a drive, like just to get out. Like just to go in
Yeah.
the car and just be like, I don't care where we go. Let's just go somewhere.
Frankly, for me, it's not much different than my normal life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, like, you know, my personal custom shop is right down the street from my house. I go there. I've also set up a workshop here at home now,
Yeah.
also, which I haven't really started working yet, but I just kind of finished setting it up. So I'm going to work both places, and there's still rig work that I'm doing that I'm still been contracted to do. In fact, I even took in a couple new things. So our one employee still gets to work,
Yeah.
and at least for the rig building and stuff. And you know, and I'll tell you, everyone sure seems to be obsessing over their gear, because I'm sure getting a lot of emails and, hey, can you modify my amp to do this and do this thing and this? And sure.
Yeah. Well,
Send it.
absolutely. I was thinking about this the last couple of days. Here's one thing we know is musicians. I mean, the world. Well, first of all, being a musician is like going straight to hell anyway, and the world we're in, the world's going to hell now too, if it wasn't already. But I'm finding, you know, everybody's like more resolute in that. Yeah, I'm a musician. This is, you know, I was kind of born to do this. This is what I do. And like you said, obsessing over their tone, which is great. You know, so it's getting people off the fence. I got a buddy who calls on Sweetwater, and he says that in that place is absolutely on fire with their business. And a lot of it is at the student level, you know, so maybe not guys touring, but you have people with all this time to kill that they're finally jumping into their passion of music. So that's an upside. I don't know. I mean, I haven't talked to anybody at NAMM lately, but is there going to be a trade show in the next 2 years?
It's doubtful.
Next 2 years?
Summer NAMM's gone.
To be honest, I think, you know, the most you're going to see is it off for 1 year.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way possible that it would be off for 2.
Yeah. Maybe this coming winter, and then maybe the following summer.
Well, I don't know about this winter.
Yeah, I think this winter is done. Yeah.
You think it's yeah.
Well, I don't know if I want to participate in it.
That's correct. Right? I mean,
honest.
it's expensive as it is, but then a crapshoot because
yeah.
Yeah, I think honestly that we could spend our money more wisely making very complete, detailed demos of our new products.
Yeah.
So say you have 3 new products, why not have a virtual, complete, in-depth, turn every knob demo?
Yeah.
And send this to your dealers, and send this to your sales guys and everyone that's involved, and put it out there in the general public. I honestly think it's probably better. You then can control your message, control what you are sending people, and it'd be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's
because the buyers at NAMM that actually buy for stores and different things do not play the product.
Yeah.
They come, they look at the product. They might listen to someone play it for a second. They look at it, you tell them about it, and then they buy. There's no playing involved. So the rest of it is just
shaking hands.
End users or musicians that just, you know, want
to
play really loud in our sound room.
And if you had good sound demos that went along with the description of the product and the great pictures of the product, what else do you need? Really?
Yeah. I mean, really, yeah. I mean, and then you will also have your YouTubers do their normal videos and everything else also. So you'll have and spend way less money. Oh my God. I mean, for a company like Boutique Amps Distribution, the NAMM show, with as large as the booth is. And
you guys do a 40 by 40, right?
50 by 50 booth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's...
Yeah, 50 by 50 booth, and multiple companies, multiple employees, multiple hotel rooms. I mean, 15 or 16 hotel rooms, you know, for 4 or 5 days, right? So...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 5 days, 5 nights, I think, because you got a setup day. And I mean, you know, the hotel rooms are probably $1,000 a room or something. That's 15 grand right there. Just
Yeah.
the rooms. Not to mention food. Not to mention the booth itself. The booth rate itself is, I don't know what the exact figure is, but it's
And just the wear and tear on your body.
$70,000 for the bare floor, something like that.
Yeah. But just the whole wear and tear of those 4 days on everybody is just crazy too.
Oh yeah.
Wear and tear on that, but also realistically, you know, the company pretty much for that month
Shuts down for it.
pretty much is kind of shut down, not shipping gear, or not, at least not shipping as much gear. Because, you know, there's people setting up the booth, there's people preparing the stuff beforehand to get it all out, and people working on the NAMM gear that goes to NAMM. So basically, yeah, it's a month that has no money coming in.
And, you know, I don't think anybody out there tuned into this video. California, I mean, you got the Teamsters there. For your gear to even touch the dock costs you guys thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I remember I sent 10 amps one year, and, you know, I choked at an $1,800 dock fee to get my stuff in and out of there. And I got to imagine, I mean, this kind of stuff you guys bring in, I mean, your dock fee is just crazy.
I don't even know what it is. And I'm afraid I don't even want to know.
Yeah.
You know,
My 10 by 10 costs like $1,800. So
I can
yeah.
And can you imagine what other companies?
Then how much is the booth? Is it $4 grand or $5 grand or something? 10 by 10?
Yeah, I was spending close to that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, with hotels, flying, this, that, I mean, you know, you're well over 10 grand.
Yeah.
Just for the tiniest of booths.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember doing Winter NAMM and finally breaking even by May. By the time that, hey, it's all paid and now everything we're selling is like, you know, recharging as opposed to just trying to get out of, you know, get the credit card paid off kind of thing.
Right. Oh
Well,
boy.
unfortunately, Summer NAMM.
Go NAMM. I'm sorry.
Oh damn.
Yeah, it sucks, but you know, like the technology is just pushing forward now on a lot of things. I mean, we've been doing video chatting on the show for years, but a lot for business hasn't really been used. And I know now video chatting, clients aren't seeing people in the corporate world, but there's still business going on. So there's a lot of video calls and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting how this has pushed a lot of different things, and I think how technology will help. But on that note, I want to get back to you, Dylana. So
Yeah.
You have a great story about, you know, how you got into this business, and you know, and you've got patents. You have you met Yngwie back in the day. You've recorded an album. I think you said you were signed to Shrapnel Records. You know, a whole host of great things that I really want to hear about. So you know, tell us about how you got into music and how you got into all of this stuff. I'm sure that, you know, there's a whole host of stuff. So this can go down.
Gosh.
Yeah. So, but you know.
Yeah, we'll take a step. You know, and for as outgoing as I appear to be on camera, and I perform and play live, I tend to be. I'm comfortable talking about, hey, you know, my band, I got a new record. That's great. That's easy. I certainly can talk about my gear, but it's always been when I talk about myself, I don't really just put it out there, except for, you know, certain areas. But, you know, my story, you know, it starts at, I was born in the mid 60s. My mom was, she was a costume designer hippie. I mean, I grew up in California and Haight-Ashbury and San Francisco, and, you know, all of that was reality. It wasn't a movie. You know, nursery rhymes for me were, you know, like Boris the Spider from Who, just, you know, crazy stuff. In 1969, there was the Seattle Pop Festival, which was the precursor to Woodstock. I think it was 1 or 2 weeks prior to Woodstock on the East Coast. And it was my mom's birthday. It was on Sunday. We went there. I believe her birthday was the 26th. Sunday was the 27th. At one time, I kind of looked at the calendar and goes, oh, wow, that was mom's birthday. And that's why we went to the show. But Believe it or not, I saw The Doors, I saw Led Zeppelin, and now I'm, 3.5 years old or something. You say, how do you remember that? I have a very vivid memory, which I mentioned to you, Mark, when we were on the phone. That afternoon, Bo Diddley played, and my mom was working with one of the gals' costumes. In fact, our hotel rooms were butted up, and the door was open, and I just, sorry about that, could walk back and forth while my mom was working on her clothing. So I got to sit on the stage, and Bo played on, it was kind of just a flatbed trailer, this was just a big empty field where they had this show. And I've got my feet dangling over, and I'm looking up at Bo Diddley, just mere feet away. And I remember him playing, and he sang a line, and he pointed at me and looked right down at me. And I can remember grinning. And I mean, if you aren't infused with the bug, by that point, I don't know what'll do it. Right, so, right. I became a music fan, and when being a fan wasn't enough, I picked up a guitar, and I shared with you. I would, maybe by 5 years old, I would sit in front of the record player, and I can remember putting the needle down on George Harrison's version of If Not For You. And the slide guitar part, not for you. I'm going to hit this mic too many times. I'm sorry. So I'm ready to go. I got my probably a nickel or a dime here for a pick, and I know it was a nickel on the fretboard, and I'm holding the G and D string, and I find where that sound is, and it's, and I would wait for my cue for that part. And I remember at that point I was already learning, and then I really took it. Oh, I was inspired. Yeah. I took it really serious probably at about 12 years old. And I was one of those kids that, socially, I didn't fit in. I never fit in. This isn't a cry fest where I talk about how bullied I was. But, yeah, I was called every name and beat up, in a myriad of ways. It doesn't matter. I'm here now. I'm still standing, right?
Hey, I take it. Cheers. I was bullied also when I was younger.
Okay.
So
all right.
Cheers to that.
Well, I'll just cheers.
So, my escape was, get to school, get the work done, get back home, and it was a normal day for literally 6 to 8 hours. I mean, it was just normal. I put in that time, and I went from being the worst kid in the neighborhood playing. I had, Dave, you'll remember the Yamaha 212, was it the G100 212?
Oh yeah,
combo.
Amp, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I had that combo. I had wheels on it, and we would rehearse at a buddy's house, probably 2 blocks up a hill. Mm-hmm. And they would invite me to the jam, and then proceed to jam for 2 hours and not let me play. But I was always invited to the jam because I had an amp loud enough. And then it was, tell me that that wouldn't give you motivation to kick these guys' ass someday. So, the last song they'd let me jam, that's great. And then it was always, yucks and giggles. And they would take my amp and literally ride it downhill for 2 blocks because it had casters on it, and leave it on the corner for me by the time I, could catch up and then go home with my amplifier. So I had a bone to pick. I had something to prove. And I'll tell you what, I was working hard. I was working hard on, Rush was definitely part of, on the technical side, most certainly Scorpions, UFO with Schenker. Remember the live record, and Michael's like this, and it's got this pixelated centerfold. Oh yeah, I wished I someday would be on stage like that. And you know what? I manifested it because I have. I've played Hammersmith Odeon and Kosieniken Hall and Tokyo and lots of cool places. But so I'm practicing, and what really? And so I've got. Here's a great album. Everybody out there, if you haven't heard this record for a while, you guys are going to nod in approval. Heaven and Hell, Black Sabbath record.
Oh yeah, of course.
Ronnie James Dio. that record was like, wow. And another misfit kid I know, his name was Dan. Dan came to school and, we were talking about records. And he goes, oh, you like that? You'll love this. And he pulls out Ozzy, the first record. And oh my gosh. So, when I got the Ozzy record, I didn't fall in love with the songs, but Randy Rhoads, the way he played, I mean, songs like Suicide Solution and Mr. Crowley and, Crazy Train, they're catchy riffs, but they're very dark songs. Lyrically, it's dark content. But Randy managed he always put this ray of hope. I mean, it was absolutely like spiritually beautiful blasting out of an Ozzy song. And I looked at his picture and there was just something about him. Of course, I'm not the only one that idolized Randy Rhoads, but the serious commitment. I was a Zeppelin fan, but not fanatic. I was absolutely a Kiss fanatic. So I put in the time, and by 9th grade, summer 8th grade's over, I show up at 9th grade, and I might have had a flying V by then, and my hair's starting to grow. And I show up and hey, you gotta go to Flying V and and just acoustically, I break that thing out and just, and it was just like, oh my God. But you know what? That was the minute the bullying stopped. And some of the guys that were the biggest jerks would like protect me. I remember going to parties and some of the, total stoners are like, what the hell are you doing here? And I'm thinking, oh, fuck, I'm going to get bullied again. No, they were like, you get your ass home and practice on that guitar. You keep going, which was, it was great. So I have this affirmation, socially, which is wonderful. So by 16 years old, I get discovered by, I answer an audition. An ad, and I stay on them in a band called Vicious Rumors, which anybody that follows metal, there's people out there going, yeah, I know those guys. We know Varney was doing Shrapnel Records, bringing in, look up everybody's brought in from Vinnie Moore to Yngwie, Place with Steeler, which is a part of this story. Yeah, exactly. So VR, these guys are in their, mid-20s, and they're auditioning guitar players, and I stay on them. And finally, the cupboard's empty. They're not finding who they want. And so they're like, might as well give the kid a shot. So they have me down, and they're like, what the heck is going on here? And it's a great audition. And it's all right, kid, pretty good, man. We'll call you. And 2 weeks later, they call me. Now, I live literally 20 miles from the nearest member, and I don't have a car yet. And so they're coming to pick me up, and then we're rehearsing in Cotati. So it's, by the time that guy gets home, he's driven 120 miles. So after 3 auditions, he brings me home, and he turns off the car. I go, everything okay? He goes, yeah, kid, is your dad home? I go, yeah. And he goes, why don't you go get him for me? I need to have a talk with the old man. And everything okay? He goes, yeah, I need to have a talk. So I go get my dad. They come out, and heck, they probably smoked a joint and had a conversation. And he drove off, and my dad walks in. He goes, well, I got some news for you. And I'm starting to sink, right? Oh crap. Okay, whatever. And he goes, you know what? You got the gig, and I'm buying you a car tomorrow. And he bought me a Marshall half stack. He bought me a Toyota pickup. Very next day, handed me the keys, and he said, all of this goes away if your grades slip. And he dropped the keys in my hands. One of the best things, me and my relationship with Dad was not always great. Many times it was kind of sucky, but this was one of those times where Dad stepped up. He saw the passion, and apparently that conversation with the bass player of Vicious Rumors went very well. So I take to it like water, and we're playing gigs. We're playing Metal Mondays. We're playing all over the place. I can't remember some of the dates, but I know we played with Slayer. I mean, back in the day, metal was just exploding. I remember seeing Metallica with Dave Mustaine, standing literally at the stage front. watching that show. So it's pretty incredible. So VR, we're getting our local thing going, and Jeff Thorpe, he's the main guy. He's the guy. It's his band. He's still in it, 40 years later. But he had the relationship with Varney. Took me over to Mike's house. In fact, I was talking to Varney earlier this week. Took me over there, and we had coffee one morning and shot the shit a little bit, and we get signed to put a song on U.S. Metal Volume 4. So I'm 16, maybe going on 17, recording at the time. That's Prairie Sun Recording Studio in Katati. And right about the time we were doing our thing, there's a big studio. Steeler's coming in. Steelers, if you might know Ron Keel. You guys know Ron?
I've heard the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he had Steeler. They're out of Nashville. I haven't been in contact with Ron since I've been here. It's been 10 years. God, time flies. But Ron had the band from Nashville going, and he got Rick Fox out of L.A., former Wasp bass player, and this kid from Sweden, Yngwie Malmsteen. And they're going into Prairie Sun to record the Steeler record, and they decide they want to play a show. And it's last minute. I think it's a Metal Monday, and we get a call from Varney. Hey, got this band. We're doing a record. Got no backline. Can we use your stuff? So the first Steeler show with Yngwie is on VR's backline. Here I am watching, this first gig, Yngwie's first gig.
And what gear were you playing at that time?
We were all on Marshalls and an SVT rig for bass and whatever the drum set was. Whatever. Drummers love drum gear.
Right.
I'm ambivalent.
Right.
Hey, Mark, sorry to interrupt here for a second. Mark, can you send me the link, please?
Oh, I didn't send it to you?
No, I've been texting you and you're not responding.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I Facebooked you.
Well, I can't get it on Facebook, so yeah, let me send it to you right now. Sorry, my bad. You can have it.
I can burrow into detail, but so needless to say, what we got is a kid who just took to playing guitar, and that was my start. Was getting discovered at a young age. And about that time, Davey Vane, Davey's a couple years older than me. Davey worked at the local record store and was also in bands, and he had his eye on me. I was in VR somewhere toward the end of my senior year. VR had slowed down now. Jeff was, working on the lineup, and I'm in my senior year, and Jeff and I were hanging out one night, and he goes, "You know what? You're out of school." Huh?
Sorry.
He's a couple years older than me. Oh, I hear. Yeah, I hear myself. Store and was also bands.
See, this is why I don't send Dave the link.
Well, no, it's not like it used to be. They changed it.
VR,
if you click on the little thumbnail in the messages,
it'll play it.
Instead of opening it up onto the thing like it used to do, it starts playing it in there. You can't mute it.
You got to click on the bottom of that, not the.
It's that one-click world we're in.
Yeah, I did the bottom. That didn't work either.
Huh.
Amazon started it with buy now and one click. Now it's play now.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to actually do this properly. And
I'm going to wait for you.
Okay, now that worked.
I'm going to wait for you and drink.
Mute. There we go. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties.
It's okay. No big deal.
So it's a pretty exciting first start. And Jeff and I are still buddies. Senior year, and Jeff was a mentor to me. This is a wonderful human being. I mean, he makes all the metal faces, and it's sinister when he plays. But you know what? The guy's got the biggest, most awesome heart, and he always watched out for me. They felt like if they talked my dad into helping me get in the band, they must have promised to watch my back, because those guys kept me safe. They didn't let me drink. They didn't let me fall into any traps. If we played a show and I didn't get back in town until 3 a.m, it was always, "Kid, make sure you're at school." I mean, there was many mornings where I would pull in the school parking lot at literally 3 a.m. and I would sleep 2.5, 3 hours. Now I look like shit at school the next day, but dang it, I was in class and I didn't let it slip. So it was really great to be that passionate and around some adults while and they were mentoring me along. And so senior year, halfway through the year, last few months of school, and Jeff goes, you know what, kid? And because I couldn't wait to get out. And he goes, you know what, be in the moment. The band's not doing much now anyway. Just focus, go kick ass at school and enjoy these last few months because this is it. Once you graduate, you're going to be on that rock and roll roller coaster, but go have this. And it was great advice because I did finish school. I did, I was enjoying, senior year was probably when I really enjoyed school. Hadn't enjoyed it much before then, but I enjoyed it that year and it was great. Meanwhile, later in that year, this is his life. And he had an opportunity through Varney to get VR with Vinnie Moore. So I guess I'll go down in history as the guitar player replaced by Vinnie Moore, which I'll take it. I do remember finding out and hearing how great he was without even hearing a riff, and I found out where he was staying, and I drove over and knocked on the door. He came to the door. I go, "Hey, Vinny, I'm the guitar player you replaced. Can I hire you for guitar lessons?" He turned me down, so he probably had an advance, and he was okay because plenty of guitar players nowadays is like, "Oh, okay, I'm broke. You want guitar lessons? Yeah, no problem." But yeah, I tried. I didn't get lessons, but it was shameless after the shredding that was going on, and then after that. Davey Vane worked at a record store, and I used to record guitar solos, bona fide. Not Eruption. I've never really played like Eddie. I can do the bar and I can do the wiggles and make the noises, and I can, if my chops are up, I can fake Eruption pretty darn convincingly. Certainly loved it, but I was doing guitar solos that were maybe more inspired by Michael Schenker. Certainly melody. If I'm gonna rip, I'm gonna rip for a reason, and it's gonna move there and take you someplace, and then plateau, and then build up, and then go. That's kind of my style. When I play like I'm making a scene in a movie. I'll put some furniture in there, and I'll paint the wall if it needs some paint or whatever. And if I'm gonna melt your face off, it's for a very particular effect. And I kept bringing solos of me playing on it. Remember when we had cassette tapes back in the day? Oh, yeah. I have a giant tub full of cassette tapes of all of my music career, but I can't find a damn cassette tape player. I bought a used one, guaranteed to work. I plugged in a tape, but I made sure it was not an important tape because it ate the darn thing. So I got to find a cassette tape. But I'd take Davey cassette tape, and he'd be like, "Geez, this kid keeps bringing me tapes." And then one time, this was Rainbow Records on Santa Rosa Avenue in Santa Rosa. And you could come in the store, but it used to be like a bank or a pharmacy or whatever, because at the very back of the store, there was like the drive-through window. And I remember leaving, talking with Davey, and I walked out and I get in the car, and to get out of the parking lot, you drive there. And as I drive, he's yelling, "Hey, kid, hey, kid." And he's waving out the window. And he hadn't heard it yet, but finally he called. So I pulled back, and he goes, "You think you're pretty good, huh?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I am pretty good. Take a listen." And he did, because my phone number was on the tape, and he called me. And we daydreamed of what Vane would be for about 2 or 3 years. And he started the band. He got the lineup. He got a handful of songs going, and then invited me down. And he said, "Okay, well, watch us play a song." And I watched, and he goes, "Okay, all right, jump in now." And I jumped in, and I never put down a guitar. I've been playing with Davey since probably 1986 at this point. So that's a long time. But that's another wonderful human being that He's been there for me through my ups and downs. He's been a source of inspiration. I know through my life, and I'll get to. Well, I'll save some of this for later, for hour 2, after everybody in the audience has drank more as well. So we're doing the club scene now. San Francisco is where metal bands came from. LA is where hair bands came from. Davey was a producer. Still is. Davey's got a Grammy for his work in the studio with Christina Aguilera. He helped do the vocals on "I Am Beautiful." Is that the song? The Linda Perry song?
Yeah.
Smash,
That's
mega
actually
hit.
a very good song.
Yeah. I've heard the songwriter demo that Linda did. So I've heard "I Am Beautiful" with Linda Perry singing it as the demo. And wow.
How is it?
She was, oh my God! I mean, we know Linda Perry's an icon as a vocalist, but she was selling that song hard on the demo. So you're like shivering, and Christina did it justice. But to hear Linda gravel through "I Am Beautiful" and just really like mean it, you're like, oof! Right. I felt that.
Yeah. It's a good song. Very good song.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So, but Davey produced the Ultraviolence by Death Angel, and a lot of other things. But that's the one that can pop off the top of my head. We were the glam band from San Francisco that, if we had enough to drink, our thing was. We were kind of badass, but metal bands were like, "We'll kick your ass," and Vane was like, "We'll kick your ass and fuck your girlfriend." So we were the glam band with metal cred, and while that helped us, and in fact, Vane's like this underground cool thing. We never blew up quite like your Sunset Strip bands. But I bet you, had we moved to LA by, 87, Vane would have probably been a lot bigger. But, we got signed to Island. I think it was late 88, 89, put out our first record. Now, this is a band with U2 money and Bob Marley money and total integrity. So we got to make the record of our dreams. The first record was No Respect. It was produced by Paul Northfield, who did Queensryche, Rush, things where Davey has kind of a higher voice, but not like either of those two bands, but he definitely has an upper register, clear voice. And so Paul was the perfect producer, and we did a live off the floor kind of record. And it still stands the test of time because it's not washed with all the effects of the era. It has a couple of gang vocals, kind of, but maybe not too big. But we, had our time on MTV rotation and Headbangers Ball. Toured England with Skid Row, which was cool. It's interesting playing shows with bands like we played with Poison. We'd play with all these bands, and I never really watched the bands we were playing with because I talked about I kind of kept to myself. But I would, to get ready for a show, some guys, they're going to burr off the edge a little bit with a beer or toke a little something. I would restring my guitars. I had to have my Zen moment with my instrument. It's probably not unlike, a lot of musicians out there. You find your thing that kind of gets you in the zone. So I was always into my gear. Looking back on it now, I wished, I maybe watched more of the set, but I didn't really care for Poison. That's, I certainly respect them and respect what they did, but their show didn't blow me away. I knew Bret Michaels was a star. I mean, you flat out that guy backstage and you're seeing him just walk the crowd and you're like, okay, the guy's mega. We played with Guns N' Roses and Jet Boy. I loved Jet Boy. I even went to Day on the Green to see Jet Boy. And it's funny. All these years later, I'm buds with Billy Rowe. In fact, I've got.
I'm friends with Billy too.
I've got a rock and roll relic Strat right behind me of Billy's.
So I know that we're walking down this path to the future here.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's talk some gear and stuff, because
Okay.
how did you go into the gear end of the music industry after like all of this, or whatever?
Yeah, we skipped all kinds of stuff, and you're right. So I auditioned for Ozzy, but we'll skip that. We're not even going to talk about that. No, we'll probably circle back. And
we had all sorts of Ozzy talk in the Jakey Lee episode.
Oh my gosh.
Not any of that, but that was a drunken debacle.
Oh my goodness. Well, we'll keep this. We might tilt in the tracks a little bit, but we'll keep it on the tracks.
Yes.
So I talked about being a music fan. Then when that's not enough, you're performing music, you're learning the instrument, you're performing. When that's not enough, you're teaching. So I was a guitar teacher all through the 80s. If I wasn't, making ends meet, performing, which you never really do. You gotta find a way to subsidize. Maybe you're working at a music store and teaching. I was doing both. And a guitar student of mine from the early 90s. We're hanging out now at about 97, 98. And he gets a hold of me and says, hey, I've got this thing, digital wireless for a guitar. And he goes, how Nady wireless, it has this thing, and Shure wireless, and it has this thing. And, in the 90s, wireless was okay. If you're a stadium guy and you have to go wireless, well, you've got to deal with the things. So he did a digital wireless, and I went to the factory and I played it, and the link worked great. It didn't feel great to play, but it sounded, it was head and shoulders above anything that was going on with analog wireless at the time. And this buddy of mine, his name's Guy Coker, who's a guitar student of mine, great guy. And so that began, it was totally innocent. I had no idea I would endeavor to the gear side. And it started with, him asking me just, to kind of consult and give him my feedback, maybe, beta test. I started as a beta tester. And he opened up the transmitter, and I would kind of guide him from what I was looking for as a musician. I want it to do this. I want it to do that. Can you make it do this? Can you make it feel like this? So he's moving around the things he can move around. One of them being impedance, right? You're going into some type of preamp front end that's running on a battery, and so we dials that in, and this is sounding great, and we're really excited. Now here all of a sudden, all the years of working in a music store really come forward and provide some value, because I asked him an innocent question. How are you going to sell this thing? Because it sounds great now. So you got to work on packaging, but how are you going to sell it? And he reaches behind and he pulls out a stack of cards from a NAMM show he went to 2 years prior. I said, that's not going to cut it. You're not just going to roll through a bunch of cards here and think you're going to get this thing off the ground. And he goes, well, what do you suggest? And I went home and I wrote a marketing / business plan. This is gut instinct. This is just having been around the block working music retail for 15 years that I apparently wrote a pretty good business plan, because when I presented it to the company, it was the owner's wife. Turns out she's the shot caller, and Guy were there, and I made the presentation, and the owner strokes his mustache and says, well, how about we hire you for sales rep Northern California? And I said, I'm not interested. And everybody kind of looks at me, what? You just made this huge presentation and you're not interested in the job we just offered you? I said, not at all. I said, if you want me to do what I know I can do, you need to hire me for vice president of sales and marketing. I need to run with this. And the owner is kind of like blown away, like, who are you? You know, what nerve do you have? And his wife turns, looks at him, puts her hand across his chest to shut him up, and she leans forward and she says, "You got the job." And it was a fantastic. The planets aligned because I got that company to $1 million in sales in year one, probably faster than that. Sennheiser was about to launch Evolution Wireless at the time, and boy, did we spoil what was going to be a wonderful rollout for them. So they bought the company. Sennheiser bought X-Wire. This company was called X-Wire at the time. Dave, you were around. I'm sure you slapped some X-Wires in some rigs back in the day, or certainly.
Yes, and then I remember when it was bought out by Sennheiser, and
yeah,
and went to the other packaging, which was great too.
Yeah. So Sennheiser was, they met because I'm still a kid really to the owners of X-Wire. They met with Sennheiser, and Sennheiser was like, okay. They assessed the situation. It's okay. We're talking to the technical people here. Who was it that was doing the sales? Oh, that was Jamie. So I get brought along. They make the acquisition, and now I get a job at Sennheiser, and I thrived. Now I'm selling all of Sennheiser's Neumann and Pro distributed products, and DAS and Chevin and True Audio, I think it was the mic pre's. Neumann mics I mentioned, and Sennheiser. And so I'm doing Pro Audio now. This is a Northern California rep gig. But I did that for a spell, and then I got bumped up to executive management. So I had really a great career, 7 years at Sennheiser, and it was an opportunity to kind of round out my executive or my business skills to just go along with the gut instinct. And after 7 years there, I'm going to have a sip of tea because the alcohol is drying my throat out.
I need more ice.
Yeah. So after 7 years at Sennheiser, I think to myself, there might be some opportunity. And Guy Coker's, he's got the itch because he's been doing electronic EEPROM programmers or whatever. He's got a non-compete clause to wait out, and that's over. We're barbecuing and we're daydreaming, and we kind of look at each other and go, it's kind of that let's get the band back together, like the Blues Brothers, like let's get the band back together. Well, what can we do? I don't know, man. I don't know if digital wireless is gonna, this and that. And so some ideas get exchanged, and he decides to pursue wireless in a different format. And that's where digital wireless now hits the pedal board. So he developed the XD95. It was a foot pedal digital wireless, just, change the delivery, change the packaging. Technology's at the point where he can make it even better. We went from a 2-rack space quad diversity to putting it inside of a pedal with 4 antenna inside. It worked fantastic. This time I'm part owner of the company. So I joined X2. I'm a part owner, again, doing VP of sales and marketing. And I had now some contacts in the industry. So I met up with a guy named Nico, accessories buyer at Guitar Center. And we have a meeting, and I make a presentation. He says, this is great. What do you need? I mean, you want a 25, 30, 40 piece order? I said, Nico, no. I said, what I want you to do is I want you to send me back into the factory like freaking Ace Frehley kicked down the doors and his Les Paul is smoking. I need to just light everybody up at the factory and really blow these people's minds. And I asked for a $200,000 opening order. And I'll tell you what, I got over 100K opening order chain-wide rollout just by asking for it. But we had a good product, and I made a good presentation, and they believed in me. It was everywhere, every step along my life, somebody took a chance on me. Somebody believed in me and I've made great things happen every time. And I'm so grateful for those opportunities, and I continue to follow my passion. So that's what got me into that. Now, again, well over $1 million, first year sales, line 6. This is 2009. They're looking to go public, and they want to really juice up their portfolio. And so they decide to make an acquisition, and they're keeping their eyes on what's out there. And we captured their attention, and so they swiftly jumped in and they bought X2. I spent a year at X2 working with Guy Coker and Marcus Ryle. Marcus is the guy that brought out the original Axis 212 amplifier, ugly as it was. It was foretelling of the future. That was mid-90s. A lot of folks will remember Marcus from Elisa's. He's the guy that brought us the ADAT. I mean, just revolutionary, game-changing stuff. So I got to spend a year working with him and Guy at the where's headquarters there? I'm spacing on the name of their
Calabasas or something.
Calabasas, yeah.
Calabasas.
Yeah. So I'm spending a lot of time at Calabasas while I live in Northern California. I'm pretty much staying down there. I remember there was a sales and marketing, marketing and engineering meeting. They were trying to bring all the minds together, and I'm at a table with Marcus's the other main engineer, Michelle, if I pronounced that right. But he and Marcus had been together for all these years, and I just belch out this great new idea. And guys are rolling their eyes, I don't know, and not really into my idea. And I get up, I walk over to Marcus, I go, can you find me a freaking engineer that can do something? And Marcus was like, the whole building went silent because he's a co-founder, and I don't know whose bed I just pissed in. So Marcus goes, well, you happen to be sharing a table with my best guy. But I knew at that point that I was probably going to be heading a different direction. And you know what? It's really great because we can all yuck it up now. But I finished out my 1-year contract, and I was at the point where I really wanted to do something professionally that made my heart sing. And so I was talking to Mark on our kind of precursor phone call earlier in the week to test the mic, that I remembered fondly of how it made me feel to teach guitar, to get somebody excited at fingering and executing a part that they thought prior to learning it was impossible. Right. So connecting somebody from impossible to possible really made my heart sing. And I thought that I had a future in online guitar lessons. And it turns out that's a huge industry. And it would have been 2009. So it wouldn't have been too late to start. But obviously it's quite congested now. And yet there's a lot of people thriving. And so while I thought that was what I was going to do, I had a couple of nickels to rub together from selling X2 to line 6. So I have the time to figure out really what I want to do. My mom, I lost my mom 10 years ago. She was ill, but we got to spend a few weekends together before she passed. And I remember when I'd come visit, I knew she didn't feel good, but when I was coming over, she kind of bared into it and really kind of woke up. She gave me the goods, and I gave it back, and lots of hugs and lots of happiness. And she wanted me to just be happy. She didn't know what that was, going to be, but she encouraged me to find happiness and do what's going to make me happy. And so, I'm thinking guitar lessons. And so I shot a video. I've never released it, but the video is me teaching Van Halen Eruption. No surprise, right? If you're going to do your first lesson, why not go for
first one, right out the gate?
Yeah. You go for the top of the mountain. So, but the approach to Eruption to me as a musician, it's not the notes. It's three things. It's tone, it's attitude, and technique. You have to have all three. That's where a great performance happens. That's when it's memorable. As a complete 180, Kurt Cobain had tone, attitude, and technique. He could play good enough and had a tone just gnarly enough that he could convey with his attitude to make a great performance. Eddie had obviously technical prowess and the Brown sound, and the technique to just blow up the instrument. He had a guy named David Lee Roth who was probably his biggest marketing machine ever.
That's true.
Edward Van Halen. Anyway, so I do this
real
lesson.
Quickly, Dylana,
Yeah.
just want to mention we have two super chats.
Cool.
Want to get to those. Dave, I didn't see the first one. Do you have the first one?
The first one is back in the chat. Basically, Steve Rayburn. Can you ask Dylana how the hybrid master circuit works compared to other master volumes? Those amps sound great. Thanks, y'all.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, so it is. There is a patent for it. If you're technically inclined, you can find the patent and certainly read. And there's a circuit diagram. What I did, I remember Mitch Gallagher, Sweetwater. You know Mitch.
Mm-hmm.
I loaned Mitch an American Dream amplifier. He plugged in and he just flipped out. I'd never heard somebody so happy with one of my amplifiers. And I think I've got it in the bag. Going to be in Sweetwater, going to sell Mitch an amplifier. It's great. 2 weeks later, I check in. Oh, your amp's so great. But, I ended up buying a Three Monkeys. And I'm thinking, what the hell happened? I mean, that's great for Three Monkeys. It sucks for me. They got a 3 in their name. So he said, your amp's too loud. And I'm one of those. A lot of people like to win, but I'm one of those people that hates to lose. And so I said to myself, this is the last time I lose a sale because I'm too loud. And so I busted my ass and came up with the hybrid master circuit. And in essence, Dave will know this as well. If you up the voltage to your preamp section, you can make an amplifier appear a little more sensitive and a little more breathy, right? Depending on what you're doing with your biasing of each gain stage. But sometimes you can get an amp to sit right in the sweet spot by changing out some power resistors earlier and up the preamp voltage.
Radically.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, depending. I always say it's like too low, it's fuzzy. Right in the sweet spot, it's great. Yep. Too high, it's too pushed, too brash.
Yeah, exactly. So I just really started playing around. I tried a typical master volume pot in various parts of the circuit, different values, different loading on the circuits. Every place I tried, it's like, okay, well, this works for 15% of the action. Then after that, I'm not satisfied. It certainly makes the volume go down, and it might even sound good. But I was looking for a full experience where it felt good too. And one of the things I did was I came up with a way to utilize some master volume circuit. And but only with very limited range of that action. So for the 15-20% where it sounds good and I'm not suffering the feel difference, but I also tied it to the cathode of the phase inverter. And if you take a cathode down in the phase inverter, you'll basically make the phase inverter run less efficient. One of the byproducts of that is the phase inverter, where you mentioned if you go too cold, it'll start to crunch. Mm-hmm. There's that point where you can take it a little cold as you're turning it down, and it provides some offset. And while you're
lowering the headroom to the phase inverter, so.
And while you're doing it, I'm upping the preamp voltage. So everything, as I'm taking it down here, I'm playing with two areas where it increases the sensitivity. It's kind of like the old, this approach came natural to me because, again, I was in the wireless industry. We deal with limited bandwidth, and you've got to shove a lot of information through a small pipe to make wireless work and sound right. So they use a compander, right? You compress it, send it over, expand it. So as I was compressing or bringing it down in one place, I'm finding ways to blow it up to offset that. So I came up with this. I guess it's just an analog algorithm. As this happens, and you create a circuit where it remains predictable. And I've done updates on Hybrid Master over the last 7-8 years. Yeah, it works quite well, and that's the most technical answer I've ever gone on record to giving. But yeah, it's a complex circuit, but it's pretty clever. I did have an amp designer read the patent and call me. He goes, "Hats off to you. Simple ass circuit, clever as hell, and works great. Right on." So that's Hybrid Master.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. And then the other, we'll get back to your story. Definitely want to get back.
Sure.
Bulldozer Guitar also had a super chat. Thank you for the super chat. He says, "Dave, what is a great sounding Strat bridge pickup for a hard rock tone? Thinking one with a full bottom end with more relaxed top end. Still want the quack in position 2, and you hate our show." Well, hopefully you like the show.
Hate the show. Yeah, he's joking.
Okay.
I'm assuming you're talking about a traditional style Strat pickup, and not a hum canceling or blade or something like that. Oh, that's tough. Still some of my favorite single coils, traditional single coils that are made, are from one of two companies. So my friends at Wade, my friend at Motor City Guitar, makes some amazing single coils that you can get. One set's called a Woodward set. Another set is called Motor City Funk, which is Alnico 2 set. He can wind the bridge pickup to be a little hotter. It'll give you a little more rock out of it. Other than that, Lindy Fralin single coils have always been amazing.
That was mine.
And again, you can overwind a bridge pickup to give you the little more rock that you're looking for. Now, this is if you're talking about, a traditional Strat pickup. And if you're not, then that's really wide open. There's a lot of them.
No, I think you're dead on. I mean, Wade makes great pickups at Motor City, and then Lindy Fralin have always made great pickups.
Oh, Lindy Fralin's the king of Strat,
Yeah,
So,
just great tones.
Almost anything. Just give me that. Oh yeah, that'd be great. Fine.
Yeah, exactly. And he's still doing them. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So sorry, Dylana. So.
That's okay. I love the questions. I learned something too.
Awesome.
I make pickups also, but I love hearing the anecdotes and the knowledge that other people share. So
you make single coils as well?
Yeah, I do singles and hums. I do a thing called magfrag. In the case of a humbucker, instead of the standard bar magnet, I do 3 chips. So imagine 3 pieces that are about as wide as 2 strings. Mm-hmm. So I use Alnico 2s under the high E and B. I use an Alnico 4 under the G and D, and an Alnico 5 under the E and A.
That makes total sense.
Oh, yeah. If you want one, I'll send you one. It's like a mastered record flying out of your guitar because each thing is doing what it's meant to do. You
have your sweet top end for Alnico 2 for your high strings.
Yep.
On the low strings, you got the cut of Alnico 5, and so it has that edge and smack.
Yeah.
And 4 is kind of a little in between, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it makes chords fly open. What I loved about it is technique becomes expression versus necessary. Okay, I have to hold back because this is going to bite everybody's heads off when I get up top. Mm-hmm. Or if I want to dig in here, I have to play harder to get the note to read. Now shifts in technique and attack is all expression because the instrument just feels linear all over. Especially, Dave, this is the biggest deal on the neck position because we could take any neck pickup. If we dial the amp in, it'll sound great. We go to the bridge pickup, holy hell, that doesn't work.
Right.
Vice versa, dial it in with the bridge, go to the neck, and you're dealing with like, this is what my neck pickup sounds like. Magfrags ends all that. Yeah, my Magfrag necks will pair up with anybody else's, flavor of humbucker that they want, but they'll get the whole instrument back versus pick your half that you're going to play on and that's it. So anyhow, I appreciate the opportunity to share the Magfrag story.
No, that's awesome. That's
great. Yeah, I do a single coil also with a 2, 4, and 5 spread out across the string, but those are slugs, and people do slugs, but how much wind you put on the coil, of course, what kind of wire, how much air you put in there, traverse or, scatter and stuff like that. But yeah, I make singles for an HSS. Try to say that after a couple of bourbons. But I make singles that will pair up great with that as your bridge position. So cats running with their hot rodded sirs and stuff like that might like to check that out.
Cool.
Cool.
Dan Pfeiffer, thanks for the super chat. It says,
Hi, Dan.
Dylana and Dave, I have an original JCM 800 that needs to be retubed. Price is no object. What are the best preamp and power tubes available?
Oh boy. Price no object.
Well,
wow.
I'm going to get some ice on that question. I'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
Price no object. Price no object.
Oh my gosh! I mean, do you want tubes that are made currently, or do you want
that's where I would
vintage
go.
Holy Grail?
So if current tubes, you don't have a lot of choices for the EL34s.
Yeah.
At least that work for a long period of time. We've been down this path, and I'm sure, Dan, you've heard of me on the show before. I use a lot of EL34s, so at this point, I really know what works or doesn't work. For production, we chose to use the EL34s because they appear to be the most reliable out there. And frankly, they sound really good. They sound like a slim bottle, Seaman type, EL34. Honorable mention, much more expensive tongue sole EL34s sound kind of cool. A little different though, not as traditional. Can't use JJs. Reliable.
Yeah, I do use the JJ E34L because it has a kick in the ass like a 6L6, and it has a pseudo mid-range like an EL. It's really neither of those tubes, but it sits somewhere in there.
Well, I did like it until you get maybe 300 sets of tubes that fail.
Oh, ouch.
So
I probably pay a lot more for my tubes. I'm buying them from CE, and I'm getting the Apex.
Yeah, that didn't matter.
It didn't. Okay.
Maybe they fixed their issues now, but I mean, give or take 2 years ago.
Yeah.
A year ago, we went through every tube vendor possible for the JJ Tesla, and all of them had the same issues.
Wow.
They work fine, they test fine, they ship out, they fine. Then one day the guy just flips the amp on.
Red plate.
Pop. Done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the red plate. Yeah, red plate basically blow the fuse.
Yeah, exactly.
You hear a hum, and boom, gone.
It can.
The tubes we used before were the Chinese TAD EL34s.
Okay.
Which sounded good, and relatively worked. But the problem is when those failed, they had dead shorts. And when it dead short, it takes out tube sockets.
Yeah.
Just scorching the tube sockets. So those went away.
Yeah. Hey, there's something I like about the Mullard reissue EL34. However, I don't like it. Every once in a while, you get a set that lasts a while.
Yeah.
I found that it had a nice chimey top end, and it compressed. If you ran it in its window, it had a really great compression. I used that tube on the British Dream amp and the Dual Citizen, because British Dream had an AC30 channel with an EF86. Same with the Dual Citizen. And what I found was I was able to, you can create the illusion of being British and kind of copying that Marshall Plexi thing and a little bit of that AC30 thing with that particular tube. I don't know if you want it to, depending, I guess, on the plate. What's the plate voltage on this JCM 800? I mean,
that's probably about 440.
Okay, so that tube
up or something.
Yeah. So it depends on, I guess, to answer the question. If you want it to wallop, Dave, you'll probably know which one. If you want it to kind of have its ass drop down and dig in and kind of grunt a little bit with a spindly top, that Mullard would do a nice thing. The other ones that, you can speak to those. Preamp tubes now. What are we going to get this guy?
Oh, boy. That's a whole nother issue.
Even
now a worse issue.
Well, I buy a crap ton of the JJ ECC 83S, the Spiral. But you know what? The sound is all over the map. But I sell a multi-voiced amplifier, so I'll listen to them and go, okay, this is definitely going Woolly Coats because it sounds American. Oh, this is creamy. This works for that AC30 flavor I have in the clean sync. And then some just sound rude and pissed off and belong in a Marshall. But fortunately, I sell enough of these multi-voices that I can utilize it. But I don't know. I like the TAD 7025 in the original Third Power HLH, which was very Marshall cascaded channel inspired. But I never could get consistency noise floor wise. I would get one great tube and then I could order a dozen and one's usable, and the rest can maybe go in a tone stack somewhere.
Yeah, generally speaking, for preamp tubes and Marshalls, I'm more of a fan of the Chinese preamp tube.
Yeah.
In general, although there are none anymore right now. The factory is shut, and they had a fire, and we don't know when we're getting them back. We as a company bought thousands of them.
Okay.
So now what? We use those basically in the cathode follower, and because they'll work all the time, the phase inverter, and then the front end tubes we use JJ because of high gain.
Yeah, you're using a short plate there.
Yeah. The standard old. Standard old one, and not my favorite, but it works.
Yeah.
And frankly, UAB2 amps with the two different sets of tubes, you can probably turn the knobs so they sound identical. Yeah.
Hey, phase inverter. I have tried everything, and I landed on the Sovtek LPS 12x7 LPS. That's a wonderful tube at the phase inverter, and it gives it. I mean, everything just freaking flies out of the amp if you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. In the phase inverter, that's really good. The problem that we're going to have now, the problem with the JJs that I use on the front end is they just one day up and decide to die. They just stop working one day for no reason. That's their problem. I get people with. I just got the amp and it was working, and then I turned it on the next day and the overdrive channel doesn't work. Oh, change V1 preamp tube. Oh yeah, it works now. Okay, there we go.
For the first 6 years, and his amp doesn't call for a tube rectifier, but for the first 6 years of Third Power, I refused to put a tube rectifier in the amp. I tried like crazy to just really dial in the amp to have that bounce. But somewhere around 2016, 2015, being here in Nashville, I had to dip into the other side and put an amp with a tube rectifier on there. So I put it on a switch, standby in the middle, tube rectifier down, solid state rectifier up. But I'll tell you what, the second I put tube rectifiers and amplifiers was the beginning of my amps taking a shit, and it's always about the tube rectifier. I hate it. But
Generally speaking, yes. So which is the lesser? First of all, never use a JJ tube rectifier, ever.
Oh, okay.
Is that what you're using?
Well, the GZ34 has been the one that's been most consistent lately. I was using this the Chinese and
they were consistent, and then they're not, and then
yes,
there's
exactly.
the one.
And the brown base Chinese. Oh my God, was it a delicious tube? It was like putting a tube compressor inside your amplifier.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But dang. And then I started having them come apart where one day the tube is dangling from the brown base. I was like, okay, well, that's a no-go. So if somebody blows a fuse, I say replace the fuse and finish the show on the solid state rectifier. Anyhow.
I'm going to go back to Dan's thing about that retube. If money, no object, and we're talking NOS, personally, in your 800, if you can get a great set, a set of old Siemens EL34s, German, awesome, fantastic. In the preamp, though, I still say Chinese. Maybe a Mullard preamp tube in the very first slot. Old Mullard.
Right.
You know?
And you might find those branded Brimar. I have half dozen or more Mullard, Telefunken, and Brimars that are all with
that are actually Mullards.
Yeah, the Blackburn code.
Oh, yeah, I have some Brimars also. So they're actually Mullards, or
yeah, they are. They're Brimar branded, but they're made in the Blackburn factory. Ah. Well, if they're Blackburn coded, there was other factories, but they would typically, you'll know with the code. What I forget the lettering, but there's a couple of letters followed by some numerals, and that'll tell you basically the lot and what factory.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the thing that's most important to remember about NOS tubes, no guarantees that if you're going to buy a preamp tube and put it in the first microphonic spot, it won't be microphonic or noisy. You have to weed through just like any tube in that spot, and you might spend a bunch of money and they say it's tested and all that. Yeah, well, it's tested to work.
Yeah,
it'll work, but it'll be ping.
I gotta imagine it's tough sledding chasing down tubes now. I remember trying to chase down tubes in 98, 99. Do you know Bill Crenard from Two Rock?
I know of him.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I lived in Petaluma, and Two Rock was, Katati, Petaluma area over there. I used to swap tubes and shoot the shit with Bill, but this was back in the late 90s, and it was hard to get tubes then. So this new old stock, chase now, that's crazy. It's hard to find. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good question, though. Fantastic.
Yeah, we've got one more super chat from Purposeful Porpoise. How you doing? Howdy y'all. He says, on a super lead, what would be... Oh, by the way, thanks for the super chat. On a super lead, what would be the sonic difference between variacing to 90 volts without rebiasing versus 90 volts with dime bias, if any? Would there be any difference? It's been bugging me.
Well, what would be the difference of having your bias running cold in a normal voltage or where it should be? There's going to be more crossover distortion. It's going to be colder sounding. It might work fine. If you use a variac and you want to bias the amplifier for the variac, which is what I would recommend, that's great. Where you're getting this diming the bias, that was the Eddie thing. So he just turned it all the way up, but turning it all the way up at full voltage and then variacing it down hits it around 50 milliamps. But there's only about 350 odd some volts to the plate voltage, so that's perfectly fine. That is a lot of sustain and a lot of compression and a lot of gain doing it that way, and it sounds really great. And that is actually part of the way to set up an old super lead to do that Van Halen thing.
I don't know if I've ever heard that little tidbit mentioned ever. I've never read on any of the old Metropolis or any place?
There's a thing that
is it written out there?
Well, he always is a guy that would always mess with a knob, and if there was a knob that could go up or a different way, he'll turn it that way. Okay, so that's
glowing
let's
to glowing
just
red.
put it there. If it can go to 11, it's going to go to 11.
How many people stuck forks in their tube sockets? Because
So when I was restoring his amplifier, I had read a bunch of articles and a bunch of things and a bunch of stuff that didn't totally make sense, but some of it did. And he said in a couple articles he did that. He would just go in the amp and just turn the bias all the way up. What does that mean to a layman? That doesn't mean much. But what it meant was he was running the current way hot of the tubes, and but he was using a variac. So okay, that's okay.
He limited the DC.
But something interesting I read, there was an article with Rudy Laren years ago, and they said something about the amps being biased to 80. And I'm like, 80? Well, approximately normal wall voltage on one of these super leads, if you bias it to 80 at normal wall voltage, drop it in the variac, it gets you about 50. And if you do the calculations on that, that's about right. Because the plate voltage is so low, it's fine. And 68.7s can totally take that, old Sylvania 68.7s. And if you set up an amp that way, literally wall voltage, you bias it to 80, and if you drop it to 90 on the variac, you read the thing, and it'll be roughly 50.
I'm gonna try that.
Once you figure that out on an old super lead, Frank, once you figure that out, you're like, wow, this has more compression, more sustain, seemingly more gain, everything. It has seemingly more. It has a squishier feel because of the lower voltages, but the bias is up, and that's a major thing how to set it up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
That's great. I learned something. That's killer. I love that.
Also, probably there's some speculation on this, but probably the negative feedback was off the 4-ohm tap, and there's question whether it's 100K or a 47K resistor in the main amp.
So it's flying open if
it's flying open, but with the bias like this and everything else. And then there's one other little trick we'll talk about later.
Okay. All right.
Well, let's get back to
I've got a set of 70 6CA7s somewhere in the shop. I've got a little box of it's only a pair. Yeah. So I can't run 100 water on that, but I do have a pair of 70s 6CA7s.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I was told also, and here's the thing that also made sense. So you set the amp like that, right? And if you decide to turn the variac up, what's going to happen to those tubes?
They're gone.
They're melting.
Yeah.
So those legendary stories of the tubes melting and stuff?
Yeah.
That makes sense. And the other thing that Rudy Laren told me was originally when they were doing all this in the archaic days early on, it's just like if a tube red plated or went, they just shoved one other tube in its spot out of the box that are not matched. Just shove it in.
Yeah.
Go.
Keep it going.
And then they have more problems, and all these problems. They blow up output transformers and things like this. And they stopped having those problems when Jose decided that it would be a good idea to match the tubes. So he made them match sets of tubes. So they would replace the whole thing. So they wouldn't have these issues. Because, one tube is here and one tube is here, one's going to red plate, and you're going to blow up transformers. You're going to do all sorts of damage.
It's like riding a bicycle with the left pedal this far and the right one here, and you just keep loping.
Yeah.
If the tubes are on. Hey, now speaking of Jose, I I know somebody. I can't. You know what? It's my buddy Jimmy from Mental Case. He was telling me Jose actually worked on.
Hey, wait.
Beatles.
Sean Rory is on the chat.
Sean Rory.
Sean Rory.
I had a conversation with him earlier this week. So we hadn't talked in a little bit, but it was great to catch up. See all the people we get to meet during a pandemic.
I hope you're healing better, Sean.
Cool.
So did Jose work on? Did he service or mod Beatles amplifiers? Did he do something for the Beatles? I heard.
He did work for Vox.
Oh, okay.
You know what? I recently someone said something about. Wait,
that's going back.
Worked for Ampeg. Not Vox. Sorry. I don't think the Beatles. Well, I'm not really sure about the Beatles, but he's appears in some Stones live documentary somewhere or some show or something as an amp tech, like in the background somewhere. I just read this and someone just told me about this. I have to actually try to figure out where I heard that and if I can see that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But he was ahead of his time, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Absolutely.
That video that you did with Pete Thorne was great.
Oh yeah, the Steve Vai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. That's one of those nuggets that people are going to still be blown away watching that 10 years from now. That was a great video.
Yeah.
Yes, and I just actually had the pleasure of also getting John Sykes amp through the shop.
Oh, okay.
So, after that video, actually.
Wow.
So do we have a John Sykes amp video to look forward to? Is this a thing?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
We should do a thing. I was actually when I saw when I saw Pete's video, I thought to myself, man, why didn't we do that video? I was like, Dave had that amp. We should have done that video. But no, that was a great video by Pete. So maybe we should.
The funny thing that that whole mod was sort of just sort of developed to capture the sound of a cranked super lead on 10 at a lower volume.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really how it was sort of developed,
It's fantastic. But just
the basic one is not a lot of gain, but the later ones, the ones that are higher gain, were.
I had the Guitar Player magazine with the first Steve Vai. They used to put a little floppy record shaped like a. Yeah, I had that.
Flexible thing?
Yeah, it was called Flexible. Yeah, that was the tune, right? Yeah, right. I had that.
Yeah, I remember that. I distinctly remember having that too.
Yeah, it got like 3 plays sounding good, and then it got worse. the more the needle drove right through that little vinyl. But you know what? It was effective. Blew my mind.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get back. So, you started after you left Line 6.
I left Line 6. And this impacted me. So we got the time with Mom. Everybody. I mean, I'm getting older. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I have lost both my parents at this point. There comes a time when we go from we have our parents to we're it, and in the case where we have kids, we're their thing, and eventually, we'll drop off the. I guess it's like shark teeth, right? We'll fall off one day and be replenished by the backside, but we won't be here anymore. So relish those times with your parents while they're still here, and I did that, and I was with Mom doing this, and so I shot this video, and I sent buddy of mine, Brad Stevens. He worked for Turbo Sound, and he's a guitar player. Great guy. I sent him my video, Eruption. Hey, I'm going to do guitar lessons. Really? And he watched the video. He goes, great lesson. He goes, damn, because I had a segment where I talked, again, it was tone, attitude, and technique. So I broke down the riff. I broke down the tone of the riff and the attitude. So you get the technique of it. You have to play it like you're kicking the freaking gymnasium doors open and you're just bursting through. You have to play Van Halen. Van Halen doesn't play nice. Van Halen is destroying the guitar with a pick hand that's like a jackhammer. There's demos of him playing on a clean amp, warming up before a show or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see that?
Steven Rosen. Have you ever heard the Steven Rosen interview?
And it's not ringing a bell, but I
it's
might.
The same thing.
There's an interview.
Yeah. It's
a
like
Steven Rosen interview. This is for Van Halen 2 era.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's talking about he's playing either through a clean amp or just acoustically with an electric guitar.
That's right.
And he's talking with Steven about the new record and new riffs and stuff. And he starts playing pieces of the record completely clean, no nothing, bare. And every harmonic, pick squeal, everything that he does that you're associated comes popping right off the fretboard.
Yeah.
And
he's not playing friendly.
No, he's not playing nice.
Yeah. No, he's, I read somewhere, I mean, Pete Townsend, if you want to look for an influence for Eddie and some of that ferocity, some people, I remember Jimi Hendrix would make love to his guitar Pete tried to do what Jimi Hendrix actually did, but Pete was more, he was more physically brutal or something. But Eddie's just flat out, he can play that instrument in a very brutal way in the early days.
And his tone.
And that had to be part of his sound too, to just drive it over the edge. I know nothing about his pickups, so I'd love to get your input on what his pickups were like back then. But to the story,
what they weren't. I mean, I
heard only one coil
different one shoved in a million different guitars. So I don't know if there's any definitive.
Yeah.
And he recorded with so many different guitars also. I mean, like the old Les Paul, like a Destroyer, this, that, Flying V, so and you listen to the records and you're like, well, that doesn't really sound much different than that. I mean, oh wait, it's his hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I send this video out to Brad, and I send it to a couple more buddies of mine, a couple of guitar students. And you know what? There's a buddy of mine that we both mutually know, Lance Wascom, former Tour Supply, Larry Martin. Lance and I are buddies, and I send him a copy of this video. And immediately I'm getting, hey, the lesson's great. Love it. It's great. You're presenting this thing and you're breaking it apart. But tell me about this amp. Tell me what's going on there. And Lance is responsible for my beginning. He said, I love the tone. We've got a unique opportunity at Tour Supply, and we'd like you to fly out and do a presentation. So that was Dave, that's right around when I met you. I had the tritone prototype head.
Yes.
With the recycled, it was recycled Marshall transformer. It was a 68 Plexi that I had done, all of my stuff to at that point, certainly inspired. That amp went on to be called the HLH 100. HLH stood for health, love, and happiness. I was on this, this inspiration from Mom of finding happiness and the balance of, again, threes: health, love, and happiness, and tone, attitude, and technique. And my cabinets, I took a 412 and I wasn't getting the sound I wanted out of it. I told this to Mark the other day. I drew a 412 in Illustrator and I put the 4 speakers in there and I deleted one. So I had a 412 with 3 in it. So I moved the 1 speaker over to the middle and I grabbed the corners of the cabinet. I was like, oh my God, there's a triangle. And then I looked at it and I go, okay, well, where am I going to put the head? And that's the biggest joke.
Yeah.
It was meant to, it was originally just a concept thing. And so I said, well, if I take this triangle, there's nowhere to put the amp. But if I put another triangle next to it and I flip one over, I can put the head down. And then I said, well, I've got 3 cabinets there in the space or the width of 2. Because I used to run when I played with. I was in a band called Road Crew with Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses. Just right after, I was in with Sean Rory. You mentioned him. He and I were in the Lawsuit band. They had to prop Steven up and make him look employable, so they built a rock band, and Sean and I were in it, and we helped Steven win his lawsuit. And we happened to make a lot of great music. Spent a lot of money. It was we had a grocery store credit card, and we had an open account at Guitar Center. Oh, it was pretty fucking crazy back then. So I was running Wet, Dry, Wet. Who wasn't? If you could in the 80s and 90s, you definitely were. And I was one of those. So here's this triangle cab, proof of concept, bass traps in the corners. And it really allowed the mid-range to come alive in the box. So with the mid-range so articulate, I could do mods in the amp. And now these little moves in the amp, different coupling caps, they sound different. But through a 412 at a certain volume, it's like, do I like the Mallory? Do I like the orange drop? Well, this and that, and the nuances. I even bought all those. Sozo caps. At certain volumes, I think I could hear what the Sozo cap was doing. You get this point where it's like it kind of all gets blurry. As soon as I went to the triangle, I could literally hear every change, and that's where I think that kind of kicked in, where I could take all the aspects, all the other experiences that I had in life, and then start to apply it there. So Lance reacted. I came down. James Lugo was doing the high gain amp shootout. I heard about the first one. Yeah. Yeah, I heard about it a week before it happened. I called, said, "Hey, can I tag along?" And he said, "Yeah." You and I met. Reinhold. I remember, hey, I'm spacing on his name, but he's a cool dude. Me and you and him and the gang went and got some food. He did is he still doing Scumbag Speakers? What was his name?
Jim Seaval.
Yeah. Is he still in the biz?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't talked to him it's been a good 2, 3, 4 years since I talked to Jim, but he was there.
Where did we go? Did we go to Kung Pao Kitty?
We didn't go far, so wherever we went, it was kind of around the corner, kind of dinery. Not, it wasn't like incredible food. It certainly it didn't.
Well, I remember that night. At James Lugo's. I don't know if it was actually before I went or not, to this place that existed in Hollywood at the time called Kung Pao Kitty, which they had absinthe martinis. And I remember having a few of those, and those were quite delicious.
Yes.
Floating down the walkway to James's later.
Yeah.
What stuck out, I'm this dude with a dream. I just lost my mom. I don't know what I'm going to do next. I got a couple dollars, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. Earlier that year I tried to get a job at I called 2 Rock for a gig. I was like, I want to get in the amp business. This after Mom died, I was going to go ahead. So now I'm thinking about doing this amp business, and it was prior to talking to Lance. I'm thinking about this and that, and I called my buddy over at 2 Rock. Bill's not available, so Joe's on the phone with me, and Joe said, "Well, what you been up to?" And No, I just sold my last business to Line 6, and he pivoted right from me trying to get a job to him selling me the company. So I called saying, I just want to sweep up. I just want to, I want to follow my dreams and just get in on this, to him trying to sell me 2 Rock in the late 2000s. But I could, a repair shop wouldn't take a chance on me. I even sent a resume to Fender, HR. Phone calls, nobody. And then Lance, out of the blue, I love what I'm hearing. We had this rapport from back when I was in X-Wire and X2, because they were one of our better dealers. So I come out, I make the presentation, and Lance says, "We want in." And it was just somebody saying, "Okay, we believe in you." And so Lance wants in. Lance, wonderful. He can be a tough guy, business-wise, but on a human level, the guy was absolutely golden to me. He paid to move my family to Nashville. He picked out the house. We were looking for, well, we think we can afford this. And I says, no, I'm not going to have you there. You're not going to have you and your kids over in this place. I'm going to move you over here, a few blocks from me. He went and picked out the house, and he made sure my salary was enough to cover that. And he paid to move us across the country, and we started. Out of the gate, I mean, we got some really great tours. We jumped on with Simon Townsend, with Roger Daltrey, right? It's 2010, I think that happened. Some really great things. We had amps on Grammys. Lenny Kravitz was one of the biggest tour. They built their entire stage set for the Black and White America was the record, and it was 2012 or 13. The entire stage set was nothing but triangle props and a triangle light show, and they had 3 tall pyramids on both sides. Most of those cabs were active. Many were bass. And so there was some 115 bass triangles. By the way, the triangle technology works even better for bass. It's very, very focused and it's very deliberate on what you're getting. So whatever you design, that triangle cabinet's gonna. It's
just hard to balance the head on top.
What's that?
So it's just hard to balance the head on top.
Yeah, you can't balance it. Yeah, you got to have a big boy rig where you can really do a stack.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it was a proof of concept that ended up being, some of us are old enough to remember the old commercial in the 70s, all right? Go back to television. You get this tropical, a wave rolls up, and you see the palm trees, you see this kind of bamboo table. And then you see this Coke glass come out. And you see this hand come out and turn it over. So the Coke glass gets turned upside down, and this clear soda comes in, and it says 7-Up, the Uncola. And so the triangle cab was our Uncola moment. Yeah, it was our 7-Up moment. It was, here's this, like, what the heck are they?
Yeah, it's like caught the eye.
It caught the eye. The amp sounded great.
Fuck? How do you wait? What? And it was visually appealing.
Yes.
It looked cool. And it made a statement.
Yes. Now that lives on. If somebody wants a triangle cabinet, we can absolutely still make it. But to this day, my 212 cabinet is 2 triangles but flipped over. So we have 2 isolated chambers, bass trap in the cab. So we have 2 triangle isolated to the 212, true stereo, but it's got 2 triangle chambers. My 112 has a triangle embedded inside what would look like. So we gain the utility, but we embed the technology. And you know what? I have a prototype and have totally proven this. I don't know. You guys, I can't see me, but right behind me, I have what looks like a standard 412. But
we can see it.
Let me draw this for you, and I'll hold this up. So standard 412, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if I cut, this works. This isn't vaporware. All right. So what do I have here? I have 2 212s, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just for now going to draw a couple of. What do I have now? 4 112s, right?
Yeah.
I can address this as 4 channels of audio, or let's address the bottom as a mono 212 and the top as a left and right stereo feed, and let's get wet, dry, wet out of one enclosure.
Yeah, sure.
I got it right there. Oh, it's, wet, dry, wet is, we still to this day, I wish I had a wet, dry, wet rig.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome to have that in one.
I got it right there. And I've never released it on the market, but if guys want a wet, dry, wet in a 1/412 size, hey, if you need a mono 412, it'll run that way. If you want to run 2 channels of audio or 3 channels of audio, as I just described it, we got it. It's a pretty cool cab. So that's a case of the triangle tech. What's that?
That's available?
Yeah, I could absolutely make it. If people want that, I'll go ahead and put it on the website. We can make it available. Yeah, I did this several years ago. I just never released it, but I absolutely can.
That's super cool.
So again, it's just the point being that the triangle technology lives on. And hey, I got a nice deck you can rest the head on now.
You don't have to balance it anymore. No.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So we're kind of caught up. We've done amps like the British Dream, the American Dream started with the HLH. British Dream was a Plexi and an AC30 in one. American Dream was a brown face and a black face in one. I did an amp that was inspired by conversations through a buddy of ours, Michael Britt. Michael Britt he was playing in Lone Star, still does, he's one of the founding members, but he wanted Blackface meets the Plexi from the British Dream. So he wanted half an American Dream and half a British Dream. I was like, okay, so how am I going to do this? Well, let's do it. I made the channels jumpable and we called it a Dreamweaver. That was a popular amplifier. From there, we had the Dual Citizen, which was AC and Fender. So we were doing these two amps under one roof that didn't normally go together, Citizen Gain, and then this, Dave, you've given a shout out to the kitchen sink before, where it's Fender Vox and Marshall in one. So we continue to kind of push the envelope of what can happen under one roof. So that's
you do realize that in sort of indirectly, even though it's not really a name, you sort of stole that name. Because I used to do mods called the kitchen sink.
And after you called it out as being a cool amp and you saw it, it was like, wow, cool, Dave Friedman liked the kitchen sink. And then somebody I know says, well, Dave used to do mods called the kitchen sink. I'm sure that's why that was.
Well, whatever. It's just a term, really. So wasn't like,
I can
but when I first saw that, I'm like, you stole my name.
It absolutely was not intentional, but
I know, that's fine.
I can change it to the whole 9 yards.
No,
right?
that's okay. I don't care. It's fine.
Wait, the WHN. The whole WNY. That's not as catchy.
No, it's not.
No,
the whole 9 yards.
That's funny.
Well,
the kitchen sink. So, how did that come about? The kitchen sink.
The kitchen sink. As honestly, I had an amp concept that the way I've designed is I felt like early on, if I can make things little modules, then I could begin to stock my tone pantry. And so I created, there has to be a bridge. If I'm going to have a Fender Blackface type of module, and I'm going to have a Plexi type of module, those really need different phase inverters. They need different things to really land there. And Dave, this as much as anybody, as gear designers, we almost have a lot. Who's the magician? Chris Angel. We have a little bit of Chris Angel in us, in that we have to perform magic. Sometimes it's like, how the hell am I going to get this done? I've got to pull a rabbit out of the hat. And if you take that magician analogy a little further, we don't have to make the elephant disappear. We just have to make you think it did. And sometimes that's where the magic lies, is how we set it up. But I create these modules, and then I have a summing bus, or a way that I bring these two different things, so that whatever's following it, it's these two different sounds aren't dependent on this piece making it sound like it needs to sound. I have to come up with a summing bus or a mixed circuit where they happen, kind of like the summing bus on a console. We have all these channels, we have drum kits, bass, it's all got to get somewhere so that it can come together. And so that's kind of, if you tried to climb inside my head and how am I designing gear, it's almost like I'm mixing a record. I have, I'm pushing down here, you guys can't see it, but I'm pushing faders. Here's a Fender fader, here's a Marshall fader, here's an AC, here's a brown face, whatever. And I've got to get all of that over to the mastering bus and Summit so that it comes out the speakers sounding right. And so early on, that's how I decided this was going to be my approach. And it served me well because now, 10 plus years into designing amps, it's a really great amalgamation of, heck, I just did a clean sync for somebody that wanted brown face and black face for the American tone and AC30 and top boost for the AC side. And on these amps, I have a pan pot. And I thought, mid-forward brown face tweed, blending that with an AC, it's not going to do that much. Turns out it's a magical blend, really, a really magical blend. So, bringing all these voices together, but it's been because I created a way to sum them, and I have all these little modules to come together.
Cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. We have a super chat from Timothy Pierce. How are you, Timothy? I love the show. Dylana, love your videos. The Charvel Suite, miss my parents also. The kitchen sink sounds sweet. David, never forget mentioning you. Never forget meeting you at Sammy Bowler in 2018 at Matt's. And then he has, is the BE20 Deluxe version coming soon?
Unfortunately, no. Not yet. Sorry. Maybe years down the road.
I mean, you can get pretty close with the Wildwood Pink Taco.
I mean, there's other amps in the pipeline that are going to happen, so we get some other interesting things. So, of course, always.
Oh, right. It's never ending.
It's never ending at all, and yeah.
I can chime in on something I'm working on. There's at one of these points, there's going to be, well, what can you share that you're working on during this pandemic and all this time on your hands?
Yeah,
should I?
Yeah.
It's now time. Well, okay. So you had asked how the kitchen sink even came about, and being in Nashville, and Dave, you see this as well. But we've seen players that I would think probably know better dip into the Kemper world. And my first experience was Michael Britt this guy was such a great ambassador and still is, but by osmosis doing Kemper profiles and using our cabinets. But so I started seeing this, and I even had one of my artists come and grab me and pull me aside at a NAMM show and said, and I'm so sorry, it's over. I'm on what? He goes, it's over. You need to come with me. And he brought me to the Kemper booth, and they were profiling a Mesa Boogie, and somebody was playing on it, and he thought it sounded identical. And I had to, at that time, this is going to sound awful. I wasn't blown away. However, I saw the power of the technology, and he was adamant to make sure I understood what was going on. And this might have been their first year. They were at a summer NAMM several years ago, and then Michael Britt, who we did the Dreamweaver with a couple years later, is really on the Kemper, and it took a couple years after that. I had to do some fly dates with Vane, and I did a UK tour, and I played on backline. And I gotta be honest, I struggled. I'm playing through Marshalls. You know what? You get it sounding raunchy at sound check. You go on stage, and the show's packed, and you play, and everything's different. The sustain wasn't there like it was at sound check. I mean, it just seemed like did somebody piss on my pickups? What's going on here? It's just, this isn't working. But you suck it up. You play the show, and it was great to experience that, because it made me realize that at that moment, had I had a Kemper with my profiles of my rig, I could have done justice to the Vane catalog and show that night. So I got it. It took me kind of having to experience, but I also missed something of a real amp. And so I thought to myself, there will come a point in time, people are going to live in this world, and then they're going to come back up, because Kemper captures tube amps. and it allows you to take them and reproduce that particular sound that you capture. And I think it does a great job at it. And I also think it's great marketing for tube amps as well. I've certainly learned to embrace the platform. And so the kitchen sink was going to be my amplifier that did this myriad of voices, and it one-upped a simulation where it could do multiple voices and blend them and layer them, right? And then and the kitchen sink has certainly turned out to be that. But Michael Britt and I did a pack together, the Citizen Gain CSR, and it was great to work closely with Michael and do a pack and then get so much positive feedback. And there's a lot of artists who have reached out and said, hey, I've learned about your company through the Citizen Gain CSR pack. And frankly, they would have never heard of us before had that title not been out. So I really kind of jumped on board the platform knowing that it's not one or the other. It doesn't replace, though in certain circumstances, I can lean on that. If I was going to go do a Australia show or tour, I would think I'd consider taking one because it can travel in my luggage and I'll be able to reproduce the catalog. Unless I take a small third power amp that doesn't exist yet, but I know what I need, and maybe I'll design something that I can travel with. But what's coming next is with this pandemic, a buddy of mine, Ford Thurston, a lot of cats know Ford through, this guy's a guitar, absolute genius, really cool hang. Have you ever met Ford?
Yes, I know Ford.
Okay.
Ford,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ford's a good dude, and we were kicking around ideas for the last year and a half, 2 years. Ford's buddies with a guy named Tom Bukovac, and there's people out there that know who Tom Bukovac are, and they're nodding right now. Yeah, Tom Bukovac's a legend. If you don't know, Tom's responsible for over 500 hit guitar tracks. I mean, he is the session man in Nashville for the last 20 plus years. Ford and Tom are buddies, and we started kicking around this concept of let's do a Kemper pack, not just of a great vintage Marshall or not, because there's all kinds of titles out there, very, very good titles done that capture great examples of great amps. But let's do a Kemper profile pack that is the amps that are on these myriad of hits, and they're Tom Bukovac's backline. So for the last year and a half, and we've been very quiet about it, just kind of organically letting this happen. I've got my Kemper here, but I've been profiling Tom's amplifiers for this last year and a half, and through this last eight weeks of coronavirus, really had some time to kind of refine and hone and pull this all together. All the while, I've kept meticulous notes on where the settings were and really kind of captured these amps in their habitat. So anyway, we're going to put out a Kemper pack maybe as early as some point next week. It's going to be the Hitmaker Session Man, pack. It's Tom 68 Plexi, and we go from clean to mean. It's also Variact. We have Tom's, I think we have serial number 3, AC30. Well, it's not even, I think it's called C30, the original one, made on the kitchen table. And then we have his 68 Princeton. And those are going to be the 3 amps that are on this upcoming pack. And I know we're Tone Talk. So when I've told a few people that I was coming out with a Kemper profile pack, they wondered which third power amp is it? And they were shocked when I told them the first title is actually none of my own amps. It's all these other amps. But I think that's what makes it more unique is an amp dude putting out a pack, and it's not even my own stuff. It's so there's a lot of love and care, and it's not I'm not marketing a Citizen Gain in this pack. I'm trying to faithfully bring Tom's backline from these 500 hit records plus and put it out on a pack. So keep an eye out on for that. That'll be announced next week.
That's cool.
Cool.
That's cool. Where can
Awesome.
people find out about that?
We're going to run a press release on Tuesday, thirdpower.com. We've been in beta testing. I've got right around 50 beta testers. So we're going to see that show up. Chatter is going to start kicking in maybe over the weekend and stuff. But I think I really wanted to have it up on the site. So when I said tonight, hey, it'll be at thirdpower.com, Hitmakers Pack, go check it out. But it's coming, and it'll be announced officially next week. But you guys are getting the sneak preview. But if anybody wants to know more about it, you can email me. How about this? Anybody watching right now that sees this and they're still in the show and we're drinking. If you send me an email, I'll send you one of the profiles free to just kick around and enjoy. So send me an email if you're interested in this new pack, and I'll send you a teaser profile of one of the amps in this pack.
And what's your email address?
Well, you'll find that's on the thirdpower.com.
Okay.
Just click on the email. It's info@thirdpower. It'll come straight to my phone, straight to my computer. But yeah, I'll send you a free profile, and just give me your feedback on it.
So,
little teaser.
Cool. So how did you land on the name Third Power? Is it because of the triangle concept? Is that what?
Well, yeah, we talked about this power of three, right? So I originally had tone, attitude, and technique. As a music teacher, I'm looking for these things that'll stick for a student. You got to practice. I'm just tone, attitude, technique. A great performance requires some type of meaningful balance of those three things. Then yes, you're right. The triangle chamber, 3 speakers, HLH, health, love, and happiness. It just, all that kind of started rolling. And Lance and I were riffing on names. And I think we were, talking about. And Dave, when I came to see you down at the Lugo thing, it was called Tritone. Again, 3, right? Thank God I didn't name it Tritone. That would have been an awful name. However,
I like Third Power. Third Power is a lot better.
Yeah. At the time, though, it was Tritone. So yes, we were stuck on this 3 thing. Divided by 13 ended up having the triangle, right? Wouldn't that have been a coup if I had, or a big win if I was able to name this Third Power and have a triangle? But no, he's got the triangle in his logo. So yeah, 3s were going on, and Lance and I from Tour Supply were kicking out around ideas. We're tritone amps. What about third? And we throw out all these names that you could, all these appendages of words, and it just became word salad, 3 something and this and that and something to the power of 3 and da-da-da. I think we landed there, and it was something with a 3, Third Power, and Lance goes, how about just Third Power? And we like stopped and he goes, yeah, let's draw that up. And we just kind of ran with it. So that's how it happened. I've had people ask me if it's some kind of Illuminati and it's some kind of religious context. And all of that. It's absolutely not. We were not thinking that deep, other than, things of 3, and certainly inspirational things like health, love, and happiness. Well, that makes sense whether you're in a yoga class or you're on stage. You want to be healthy and you want to love your band and love your audience if possible and be happy, So anyway, that's how it came about.
So what other products do you make? So if you can run through the product line.
And what's the current lineup?
Yeah, current lineup is the kitchen sink sits on the top. That's the multi-voiced amp. That's the Fender and Vox and the Marshall. And from there, so that's a clean and dirty amplifier, 2 channels with multiple voices on the clean. The dirty's got some switches that, you can go from plexi to flamethrower. So, but it's really a multi-functioning 2-channel amp, multi-voiced. We basically decoupled that because I had people who loved the Dual Citizen, which kind of got replaced. Everything got replaced with a clean sink. It made no sense to make a Dual Citizen, a Dreamweaver, American Dream, a British Dream, when, that amp is, all those amps were embedded in the kitchen. But people that played clean had no interest in the plexi side. So I spun the line off into a clean sink and a dirty sink. So clean and dirty sinks are 1/2 each of the kitchen. And that made sense. Here's a couple of 20-watt little amps that kind of point up to the North Star, being the big amp. I had about 5 years ago, literally the week before NAMM, I had a dream. We all know Walking Dead. I'm binge watching Walking Dead for like the month leading up to a winter NAMM 5 years ago. And I wake up and I had a bit of that, Van Halen kick the arena door open attitude. I woke up and I go, damn it. All I sell is prissy amps. Everything's prissy. Everything's all, it's all pretty and multicolored. And I was like, I woke up pissed off. I go, I need something dirty. I need something with a beard. I don't care if you're in a suit with a beard and you're clean cut or there's beer and noodles hanging in it. I needed some. And so it hit me right then, woolly coats. I had a name for a product before I had any idea what it would be. And I thought, well, where is my amp line open? Because I had American Dream, British Dream, Dreamweaver, Dual Citizen Gain, I mean, it's crazy, right? All this stuff. And I thought, little grab and go. What's a perfect little grab and go? Well, it's number one little grab and go. It would be a Princeton. And so I took all the work that I'd done in an American Dream, and I just took the blackface voice, shoved it in. I ordered a Mojo Princeton chassis, basically put the blackface channel of the American Dream into that. Everybody was like, you are crazy. You've got to focus on selling what we have now, sell what we have now, sell what we have now. I flew on the plane with the first woolly coat Spanky, and I'll tell you what, to this day, that has been my keep the lights on amplifier. I may have a month where, not really impressive sales for a big ticket, but dang it, I sold a bunch of woolly coats. And so it's been our number one seller for 5 years, just flat out. And it's a great amp. And so I've kept improving it, added reverb eventually. There was a run there where I did tremolos, or a period of time where I did a 20 watt and a 35 watt version. The 20 watt was always the big seller of it. So I've just kind of pared it back down. I could see the woolly coats line blossom out again. So there's the woolly coats, Knott's 1849. And it's a killer. I've got that out on the Alison Krauss tour. A bunch of studio cats are cutting records.
Sheryl Crow. I just saw the guy
from
Sheryl Crow.
Well, yeah. Now he's Audley Freed's got the extra Spanky. That's a model I could make. Basically, he still owns his Matchless. He's quite happy with that amplifier. But he had some I wishes. I wish this, I wish that. And my shop was over in East Nashville, and he and I became buds. And we kicked around some ideas, and he kind of expressed his I wish. And I said, hey, let me make something. And that's an amp. We spent over a year refining and really meeting his I wish. Got to the point where he's like, that's it. That's exactly what I want. He doesn't use the reverb, but I forced him to take reverb because it's a delicious reverb on there. I think he tickles a little bit of reverb here and there, but yeah. So that's how that came about with Audley. It's not a signature model; it's the extra chimey, but that was an amp that there was one player in mind, and one guy I consulted throughout the whole project was him, and it was really great to work on that with him. Sadler Vaden with Jason Isbell. We're talking about his next I Wish amp, and he's been using a British Dream for about 7, going on 8 years. But his I Wishes, we're going to take his British Dream and kind of expand it into all his I Wishes. So that's probably coming up, but who knows when bands will start playing again.
Right.
Yeah. So that's I think that gets us. Did that get us through the lineup? Well, no, I didn't take you all the way through. So we have these myriad of amplifiers, which I can make custom. I know, Dave, you'll do. If somebody wants something, you'll make the damn thing for them. So,
sure.
You go
Might
to our
take
website.
a while, but I can do it.
Yeah, might take exactly. So we have our core dishes that we'll cook up for you, and we have some of the chef specials over here. And if you want something from our back catalog or a dish we make once in a while, it's there, and we'll make it for you. I think moving forward, we talked about the hit makers coming up. I make a drive pedal called the Roosevelt Drive. It's really inspired by the Mostortion, which is a very extremely popular pedal here in Nashville, I'm sure, and beyond. That's a drive pedal that'll get furry and warm, but has a great 3-band EQ. And a lot of guys will buy a Mostortion and then they'll rehouse it in something a little more robust. And we took it a step further, and I took a Mostortion and just looked at it, and we built one in-house, and then I started just tearing through it and doing some things I may have naturally done to a gain stage in a tube amplifier. And so the prototype had actually tube amp parts. Certainly over voltage spag, things that you wouldn't normally put in a pedal. But as we put it in there, we ended up with a pedal that sounded like a tube amp. And that's kind of cliche, but it's Mostortion influenced, but the high end is delicious versus I can kind of use the highs, but after 1 o'clock, it sounds tinny on some pedals. This is like, you have full sweep. You have lows that actually drop down and grab some meat. There's meat on the bones. There's flesh. You decide how big of a bite you want to take, because we put all kinds of meat on the bone on all those controls. And that's been a pretty popular pedal. It's tough when Dave, you've made the pedal thing work for you. There's one of me. We're much smaller.
Yeah, we had a huge hit with the BEOD. I don't know, at 20,000 pedals or something.
Right.
I mean, that was a massive hit. That knocked that out of the park. And then, some of the other ones have been done well, and then some haven't. And it just depends on what, None of them are bad pedals, I don't think. It just, it's just like trying to educate people what these pedals do exactly.
Yeah.
And why they should have them. That's always an interesting thing.
I have all these stories to tell. I got a triangle here. I got a Magfrag with 3 different magnets. And then I have this Roosevelt Drive that's like a Mostortion. But, I've seen cats like Tom Bukovac or Jerry McPherson's one. He's probably my top user of the Roosevelt Drive. It's his always on pedal. He sets it exactly where he needs, and he just runs the volume. And that's a phenomenal endorsement right there. I can't tell you how many guys I saw Jerry says, order it. And they just flat out order a Roosevelt Drive. But it's a drive pedal that will take your clean to edge of breakup amplifier and extend it without destroying the fun, the inspiration, or the tone. So it really kind of becomes a part of the whole signal path. And I think that's why cats like Jerry just swear by it. I have complex stories. My products have a little more, but there's a common thread there's a lot of passion, a lot of love, and attention to detail. And if I put a product out, it doesn't suck. There's somebody out there that's absolutely the right. I'm fixated on your Shelby shirt, by the way. I just saw, what is it, Ford versus Ferrari?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
What a great movie.
Oh, you haven't seen that movie?
No, I need to see it.
It was a good movie. I went in
this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, I went in with not much expectation at all. But Ford Thurston told me, dude, you got to check it out. And it's absolutely worth the 2 hours for sure.
I'll download it. Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, Shelby. I mean, I love cars too.
You'll love that. That movie was fantastic. I mean, just fantastic.
That's cool. So
I remember when I wanted to watch it, my wife was like, "Really?"
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you think you're going to see one of those silly.
Come on.
Yeah.
Right, it's gonna
and she didn't pay any attention, of course, but I did.
be.
But
That's funny.
that's fine.
Do we have any more questions? From
we've
folks?
got tons of questions, but one.
Yeah.
Before I get to the chat questions, I had just an overall question. Like,
Yeah.
what are some of your favorite tones? If you had to, describe on record, what are some of your favorite tones? Things that have inspired you.
I want to answer this too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, what just jumped out right now is, so it would bounce all over the place, but the first thing that jumped into my head, dun, da, 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 da. Okay, and then Schenker comes in, doctor, and he does that 2-note. So Doctor live off of that UFO. I was never flipped out over Kiss guitar tones. I was flipped out over the band. But the guitar tones didn't do it for me. Aerosmith guitar tones for just badassery. Some of the, I'm thinking of Toys in the Attic, absolutely.
And
stuff off of Rocks. I'm thinking of the pseudo live rollout, ride out on Train Kept a Rollin'. Mm-hmm. There was a Kiss guitar tone that jumped out. It was side 4, Kiss Alive 2. You had Rocket Man, and I forget, was it Rick Derringer on guitar that did the Larger Than Life? The band goes, bah, and they hold this, and then there's this like whittle, bow. And I remember like rewinding the Smash and hearing that riff because it was just so piercing.
I have to say I've ignored anything Kiss because I don't particularly care for them myself. But
sure.
I understand tons of people that do love them, and that's cool.
Well, and that's not even.
I've done work for them, and that's cool.
Yeah.
I know people
not
that
even
work
Ace,
for them,
I'm sure.
and that's cool. But I personally, I hate them.
I'm sure it's a studio guy. Stevie Ray Vaughan blew me away.
Oh yeah.
Van Halen 1 and 2. Fair Warning blew me away. Those would be the 3 records. I got to tell you, there's a record that was definitely popular. However, I don't hear a lot of cats talk about it. But Great White's debut record, damn. Not only, I forget guys' names, Mark Kendall, guitar player, I wasn't blown away by his playing, but holy heck, that is a rock-ass guitar record. And the singer, there wasn't many better. That's just a flat out, pretty much close to flawless record. I loved Heaven and Hell. I loved the Dio stuff. We jump into, you don't go to the debut Dixie Dregs album seeking tone, but damn it if you don't have moments of amazing tone that Steve Morse throws in there. A couple of records of Dokken where I really loved. Lynch was definitely influenced. Rat, Lay It Down. Who doesn't drool over the guitar tone at the intro of that tone, that track, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think I'm going to get to see that amp.
Ooh.
I know. Lately I've been into this archaeology. Archaeology. That should be a website or something.
Archaeology amps. Well, you're in the town to do that. That's great.
I don't know. We've been talking, so I might see that. Hopefully, I do.
Yeah.
Lately, it's been a plethora of stuff. The EVH stuff in the past, and then the Vi and the Sykes, and it's been like going like gangbusters lately.
That's awesome.
Like if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down some of those same rabbit holes that you did. Best, I have to say, some Led Zeppelin, like Heartbreaker. The
Sure.
and stuff in like Heartbreaker and stuff. Unbelievable.
George Harrison.
Aerosmith Rocks and Toys in the Attic, like I said, unbelievable. For me, my favorite Van Halen record is Van Halen 2.
Yeah.
Actually, I like the tone the best on Van Halen 2 of all of them. Although,
doctor.
although, you know, all of them had good stuff. I also really like 84. It was cleaner, but I really like 84, and I liked his playing on 84. And Fair Warning, of course. I mean, you know, it's great. But if I had to pick one out of all those, Van Halen 2 is it for me.
Okay.
For the guitar tone.
Yeah.
I think everything was right on that guitar tone in that one.
We got to throw in some Tom Petty. We got to throw in
Tom Petty for the Vox.
Yeah.
Semi-broken, open chord, unbelievable, amazing. I'm going to throw one I did on another show. I'm going to throw one out there that was interesting for me. King's X.
You've mentioned that before.
King's X, Gretchen Goes to Nebraska record. An amazing record and a unique guitar tone. And that's what made it be great, because it wasn't the same. And it was great sounding. And recently Pete Thorne interviewed Ty Tabor, and then Pete went down this rabbit hole and he bought a Lab Series amp.
Oh, okay.
And he bought one and plugged it into his 4x12, and you got to crank the mids up on those amps to get them to distort. And when you do that and you crank them and you go and you listen, you're like, oh yeah, that's basically that tone. I mean, he had the Fender Elite guitar with the little preamp that was in it that kind of goosed the front end a little bit more, but that was the tone. And like you heard it in person, you're like going, yeah. And it was really cool. Like you said too, Rat, Invasion into Privacy, several Rat records. I mean, always good. A few of the Dokken records, Under Lock and Key, particularly I like.
Yeah.
Back for the Attack also had some cool sound. I think Under Lock and Key, they had a certain kind of fatness to that one that was good.
That's a Michael Wagner record, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. He was like the sound of the
I remember,
right?
I remember George telling me on one of the records with Michael, George was using some sort of, under the console, they had it hidden. And it was some sort of Fostex or Tascam Porta Studio that the guitar would go in and would come out and go to the amp, and they'd use it almost as a preamp to boost the amp a little bit. Something he discovered at home. You know,
oh, wow.
You know, and it was, they had it hidden so no one would see.
I wonder if he's got like the Dolby Noise C button.
I don't know, but you know, but again, this is what people trying these unique things, like same thing with Richie Blackmore used the tape machine, you know, in front of the 200-watt Marshalls, you know, and it would preamp it and all this. You know, these people trying all these things are what created signature guitar tones.
Yeah.
It was their experimentation, and they came up with their own recipe and their own tone.
Brian May, another example there.
Out of you know, at the time, out of lack of choices. You know, it's like you're searching for something. How does it distort more? I mean, that goes back to the Kinks slicing slices in their speakers to get the speaker to distort more. And you really got me, you know. So, you know, those are some of my favorite guitar tones. I mean, I could AC/DC, of course. You know, Back in Black.
That's a gaping hole we didn't fill till now.
Perfect record. Sonically, across the board, the bass, the drums, everything about that. You put it on a pair of speakers, you crank it up a little bit, and everything about it is like, oh God, that's good. You know, and man, you know, I don't know. You know, there were elements of other people too. Steve Stevens had some tones over the years that were amazing. I particularly like the stuff on Whiplash Smile record, which was all about Plexi Marshalls cranked the hell up, and it was really good.
I'm gonna write that name down. That's maybe I've heard of them, but I don't know who
Billy
did that. Oh, okay, okay.
Billy Idol, but the Whiplash Smile record, which was latter, that was after, the big record and stuff. So that would have been mid 80s or something.
Gotcha. Okay.
But there's some cool, interesting World's Forgotten Boy, I think was one of the songs. And there's some interesting, really cool, like ambient, cool Marshall plexi cranked. And it sounds like the amp cranked in a room. And it's just like this cool thing.
You know who did a really great, similar to this question of what we're doing right now? Tom Bukovac actually has he's got like this weekly, almost daily corona lessons, and I think he drinks a beer while he does it. But he has the 5 Steves episode, and he goes back. Steve Morse is one, but he calls out I'm spacing on the guy's name, but hey, guess what? It's Steve something. But it's old Genesis, old Peter Gabriel. And I, on his recommendation of some stellar records, I went back and I listened to 5 records I had really never followed.
Steve Hackett.
Yeah, sorry, I was reading something in the text. I got another one.
Okay, yeah. So there's some great ones there, but his feel on guitar, for folks that don't know, anybody that calls himself a guitar player, jump out, find Tom Bukovac, Buko, VAC is how his name. Figure out Bukovac. I think I've had too much of this to spell his name out.
Hey, you know what? I wanted to.
We're still in control.
Okay. Yes, we are.
Say there was a question that.
So wait, Mark. Let me just comment on this one thing. Speaking of the guitar tones,
sure.
So Cecil Music said Akira Takasaki, Loudness.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent tones, always.
I saw Loudness live. Say that after this.
The 80s.
Early 80s, yeah. Early 80s. San Francisco was great because anything metal, anything hard was coming into town, and just anything. And yeah, so I saw
open up for Motley Crue.
Yeah. I've got a run-in with Motley Crue that's a really cool story. They did an in-store, I think it was 1981 or 2. It was Leather Records era still. They hadn't been signed to the big label yet. They were at would it have been Warehouse Records under the freeway in Santa Rosa? They did an in-store before the show, and Nikki Sixx, totally everybody was approachable. Nikki Sixx and I talked for, talking to somebody at an in-store for their band, if you talk for literally 30 or 40 seconds, it feels like 5 minutes. Yeah. So we had that exchange, and I was, looking rock, and he was looking rock, and I was going to go see him, and we talked about this and that, and he had a vest or a jacket on, and he had a bunch of pins on it. That was his thing. He had pins all over it, and he had a pin, a black pin, a little small quarter-sized pin that says "Live Evil." And we talked for, again, it felt like 5 minutes is 30, 40 seconds. And I was like, man, right on, cool. I'm a fan of the band. I'm going to see you tonight. And I go, I want to, basically something to the effect of, I'd love to remember our conversation. You've got a gazillion pins. Can I have one? And he reaches over and he pulls the Live Evil pin off of his vest and hands it to me. He goes, right on, kid, whatever. And he gave me his pin. And I still have it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it would be great if, I know Nicky's got his own, everybody's got their own lives going on, but if I ever meet him, or hell, Nicky, if you're watching, have me as a guest on your show. I'll come in, and I'd love to, either return the pin to you or at least bring it, and we could bring that up. But hell, that's a great memory. I just thought I'd do it.
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I had a question because, of course, Dylana, you're so well versed in wireless, and Dave, I asked you this question a few weeks ago. I have a friend, Joe Suma, who sent me pictures of Ed's rig, Van Halen, and apparently he used this wireless that had a boost in it that boosted
The
his signal.
Schaefer Vega.
Yes. So, and now there's a Solo Dallas or something, Solo whatever, I forget the name of the,
Yeah.
that makes a boost that supposedly mimics the boost that came in that wireless pedal. And there's some speculation that Ed used that wireless boost in the studio again to help boost his signal. I'm just curious what you guys, if you know anything about it, and what your thoughts are on that.
AC/DC used that in the studio.
I don't hear it when I hear Ed's tone. It's not like I'm hearing.
I'm
hearing
hearing
high quality stuff there. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't believe Ed used it in the studio. Used it live, yeah, sure.
it's going to squash the signal, right? You're back in the day, wireless.
It's compressing. It's compressing and giving it a little. There's a little gain boost if you boost it, and it's compressing. The Solo Dallas stuff sounds great. It's super cool. I mean, get over this, people. Look, it's really simple. It's really fucking simple. It's an old Plexi Marshall set up a certain way on 10, depending on what era we're talking about, could have been slaved. But I was told straight from Rudy Laren, who was his tech, from the beginning, before they were signed, until through through the '84 tour.
That's a good era.
He goes, yeah, that was a long time. He goes, what was live generally was a head, 1 or 2 cabinets. The head was, everything was on 10.
Now, wait a minute. They had 85 cabinets on stage. You mean to tell me only 2 were running?
Yeah. 1 or 2.
Wow.
And everything was on 10 with the Variac.
With the bias trick.
Bias certain way.
Yeah.
With his pedal chain. With maybe at various times an EQ.
Well, right, because I have the pictures from that book.
The GE10 EQ.
Right.
Even an MXR6 band at times. That's it.
Right.
That's all there is to it. It's if you set up the Marshall properly, the way it's supposed to sound, and you crank it and you maybe boost it slightly with the EQ, dude, it's got gain for days. Now, I'm not saying just any old stock Marshall on 10 is going to get you that. No. It has
Negative
to be set
feedback,
up,
too.
It has to be set up a certain way.
Yeah.
And look, I serviced
You serviced
a
it.
dozen of his amps, old Marshalls, the same Marshalls that you saw on tour, the same Marshalls you saw in pictures, JMPs with square switches, 4 inputs, the old wood cabinet head that was early on that you saw way back in 1978 with all those amps lined up. Mm-hmm. And guess what? Never saw any evidence of any modifications. Other than an occasional component change here or there per amp, or maybe an improved impedance selector, like that was heavy duty instead of the old little flimsy Marshall ones that would fall out and your amplifier would blow up. That's it. 68.7s, just and Mark, I just dialed that amp in for you, that reissue. Mm-hmm. So that dimed up on 10. What does it sound like?
Van Halen.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yeah. No, it's
got a lot of gain, doesn't it?
It's unmistakable. Yeah. Yeah. Then you roll back the volume on the guitar and it cleans up.
And then depending on the pickup he was using at the time, or the and he used various pickups, whatever he wanted to. He'd throw a different pickup in a guitar. Oh, let's try this Mighty Mite pickup. Okay, cool. Put that in the guitar. He used it for a tour or 5 shows and then took it out, put something else in there. It's like put different necks on guitars. So it was always changing. It was a tinkerer's, experiment.
Right.
If you
there
guys
was no science behind it either at the time. It was just, yeah.
I have a guitar that just, no matter what you plug it into, conjures that era of tone, and that's behind me here. The Black Charvel, that's
You realize
that's a 1981
Oh wow.
bird's eye, no fingerboard, right? It's just one slab of bird's eye with frets chopped right into it. I took the neck off one time, and it says it's a November 18, 81. A serial number 72, 072 in pencil on the neck. But that guitar.
So when you guys see my Cali guitar in black with cream rings, it's because of that guitar behind you.
I've got a picture of Grover.
I remember you bringing that guitar in my shop and this and that. And I saw that guitar and like, oh God, that's great.
It's
and
the one.
When we did the Cali guitar, that guitar was the inspiration behind the whole guitar.
Oh wow. My gosh. Well,
I mean, visually, like so.
Yeah.
But it was done by Grover, so hey.
Of course.
Well,
there you go. Well, right now people are chopping away on the Groom Noodlers forum talking about that guitar and your guitar now. So there we go. It's legendary.
Well, I always was like, man, that just looks, the black with the cream rings and stuff, it just looks classy.
Yeah.
It was like a classy look, but it still kind of screamed rock and roll, but it wasn't too, even though it was from the 80s, it wasn't like a dated look necessarily because it was black and it was, kind of simple. It wasn't like there was some graphic on it or
there's no
color or
lightning bolt.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't look like Twisted Sister did, 5 years too late with it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No offense, TS, but
I mean, I've never played that guitar, but the inspiration was.
I tell you what, whenever I do a Vane record, I mean, I use a lot of guitars for any, whether it's tone testing or anything I work on. But when I do a Vane record, if we need to call back, I mean, that's the guitar that I did No Respect with, which is kind of the benchmark. That was our record, but I cut it with that guitar. You cut a track, you just immediately. I mean, if anybody wants 80s, I already am 80s OG. I mean, heck, I did my first record in 82, but there's a guitar. That's it. You just dip right in. Doesn't matter what you plug into. Right. You're there.
That's cool. Yeah. Hey, Cecil Music, getting the questions because you just mentioned it. Cecil Music says, Mark, can you ask Dylana what's her memories of recording No Respect at Le Studio? Such an underrated record.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Recording the record, we did it in the winter. It was effing cold. I remember we did pre-production in Montreal. So we did 2 weeks in Montreal, Paul Northfield. We're in an upstairs loft, brick building, working on the tunes, and everything was, we were given the green light to just capture the band live in the studio. After pre-production, we went into the studio. We stayed at they basically, I wouldn't call it a mansion, but it's a very well-equipped, cottage. It wasn't a cottage, but it wasn't a mansion, but it was definitely heading that direction. A very well-equipped, several-room place. It's on the lake, but because it's winter, it's nothing but snow and negative degrees. So you couldn't. There was no outlet. So there was no outlet other than to make a record in the dead of winter from Montreal and then to Le Studio, Warren Heights, except for skiing. So we did ski a couple of times. I did fall down the mountain. They had to send a snowmobile up to retrieve me because I really hurt myself, but I was still able to play. I couldn't walk, but I was able to play.
Oh boy.
So there was a big aurora borealis. I think, folks, if you don't know what that is, look it up. But it's like standing inside of a diamond on a galactic level, on a regional level. The beams, you feel like you can touch them, and they're never ending. It's pretty amazing. But the aurora borealis effect was so strong that it blew all the power out in the province of Quebec. So you have a massive chunk of the planet without any light pollution at all. So that really kind of exaggerated. And we had just finished tracking a song called Smoke and Shadows when the Aurora Borealis hit. So that was pretty incredible. We were almost done with the record, in particular, a song called Icy. We had finished tracking Icy. We're on another track, and we needed to blow off some steam. So we went to a local pub club, and there was a cover band playing that night. And during intermission, Paul disappears, and he comes back, and he says, "Okay, guys, hit it." So the band head, Paul, went and negotiated with the band, and they let us up, and we got up there. I mean, we just freaking tore the building down because we had no outlet. Sure, we're making a record, and this is great, but we had there was nothing to do. So we jumped up there, and we played Icy like there was no tomorrow. When we came in the next day in the studio, we came in and we were maybe tracking some solos and some background vocals. I mean, we were done with basics. We walked back in. The place looks like day one. All the rigs are back up. Everything's mic'd. The drum kit's up. Everything. It looks like we just started. We're like, what the hell's going on? He goes, yeah, you guys are going to go record Icy. We're like, we've already cut Icy. And he goes, no, I want the Icy I saw last night. So, yeah. And so what's on the record was the second complete version because we had already cut it. But it was like Icy light compared to what's on the record. And it was pretty cool to be able to do that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So you're in a studio. Keith Richards had been there. Of course, a lot of the huge Rush records, and we had the producer. I was keen on studio stuff, back then. And so I would just stay quiet in the back and just watch. And, okay, we're going to put a little AMS here. We're going to bust this over here. We're going to put a little compression on the kick and snare. We're going to do this, and we're going to tuck that, and we're going to sum it all and put it over. So it was one of those things where in the mid-'90s, I had my own Soundtech EQs and my own Neve mic pre's. I was a freelance engineer. I was doing a lot of recording. I was mastering records in the later '90s. Rap, I was there was a studio I worked in Oakland. Imagine me going into Oakland and mastering rap records. It was it was pretty amazing. But yeah, I got into it and just. I've worked with guys like Dennis McKay in the studio, and of course, just witnessing the magic of Paul Northfield. So there you go. That's that little bit of the take on doing No Respect.
That's cool.
All right.
Joel Eakins, Dave, is there an output difference between the Butter Slacks and the JJ100? My Slack seems quite a bit louder even when I turn the JJ Master most of the way up and use the channel volume to get my level.
No, not really.
Negative feedback difference between the two?
Yeah, depending on the era of the amp. No, maybe. No, I think it's all there. I think it's just the taper of the pots and what you're doing. It's I'm thinking about that for a minute, just between the two amps, and there might be a feedback difference.
Is if one's walloping more than another?
The Butter Slacks having less negative feedback, so it might seem a little louder, but in reality, it probably isn't. You just might be setting the volumes in a different spot.
Hopefully I didn't call out a secret, but that tends to be where the way he described it is how guitar.
Well, here's the thing. I think that some people sometimes listen with their eyes instead of even positionings of things and stuff, and it's just like often it's like a lot of people will say that. Hey, your amp doesn't sound like this old Marshall or a Marshall or something. I'm like, well, what Marshall?
Yeah.
And because I can tell you that my B100 Deluxe can sound like this 68 50 watt Plexi behind me to the point where you can't freaking tell. But what Marshall are you referencing? And do you have a background in really like what sounds like? You know what? So I'm going to do a video soon that you'll see it. It's going to be interesting.
Okay.
I'm looking above. There's a giant spider that right now I'm in a safe distance, but it is right there, and I will continue to watch its progress. So if I jump up and have to,
it lands on your face.
well, I might jump up and kill something, and I hate killing something, but it just might meet its end if it gets too close.
Yeah.
We got a question.
It's funny. Sometimes in your house, you'll just look up and you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
look at that! Where did that come from?"
I may let that live.
Yeah.
Huh?
I may let
If
that
I
live.
have-
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's like I always like my son or my wife will like, "There's a spider. You have to come here." And I come in there, and it's like this daddy long leg spider in the corner. I'm like going, "I'm not killing that.
Yeah.
It's harmless. It's totally harmless, and just like leave the thing alone." Now, if it was Black Widow or something, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Plus, you have a cat. The cat will get to it anyway.
Oh, we have one cat that kills every bug that's in existence in the house. I've watched the cat catch flies in midair with its two paws
Oh my
and
God.
then eats it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like watching it, I'm like going, "You actually caught it. I can't believe you actually caught it. This is the best fly catching. This is the most useful animal I've ever had."
Bravo.
Because he'll just take care of any bug that's in the house.
That's the exterminator.
Awesome.
That's funny.
You just watch him and you're like, "Oh, that's gross," but okay, cool.
We got a question from Kabat Noonless. He says, "Does
Yeah.
conditioning the wall voltage?" Let's see, I can't speak now. Let me hang on a second.
I know what you meant.
Mark's not used to drinking whiskey.
No,
people.
no. I'm not.
See, I'm totally lucid tonight. I'm fine.
I had to slow down because I have made a substantial dent in my bottle.
Yeah.
You can.
It's not as big as my desk.
Oh my gosh! No, it's not.
Well, wait, no. There was a little bit out of that bottle to begin with.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, I'll start again. Does conditioning the wall see, I can't say it.
Voltage.
Voltage do
If
anything
you're from
on
Germany.
modern amps, specifically for bedroom warriors? Would we be able to tell the difference?
No.
I'm mixed on conditioning because it's like you have a tube amp. Now, if we're talking a big amplifier, something that's designed to throw current, and you're going to put a straw and it's got to try to suck the current out of the wall through a straw, that would be a poor form of conditioning. And unfortunately, some of the glamorous branded conditioners, they're really you're just going to be sucking voltage through or current through a straw. I don't know you're going to get any benefit. Can you get some filtering and get some hash off the line? That might make sense with a fairly expensive conditioner, as long as it's not.
But any conditioner is going to give you some RF filtering and some stuff and a little bit of hash off the line. But, I mean, people always think their noise is associated with their wall. And I would say 99% of the time that isn't the case.
How about sitting too close to your transformers in the amp?
Oh, yeah, sure. 99% of the time, there's some other noise problem.
Yeah.
And then the wall conditioner is not going to cure any EMF field hum from your pickups. Certain houses or rooms or certain areas are just EMF central, and the guitar will buzz like insane. And I hate to tell you this, there's nothing you can do about it. Not really.
Yeah.
If you were to do something about it, it would be so costly. You would pretty much have to line your walls in metal, and you'd have to ground it all, and it would have to be a shielded cage, a Faraday cage, basically, sort of thing. And, you're just not going to do this.
It's not.
I've dealt with this many times. I'm just like, move. I hate to tell you, you're screwed.
Right.
I've had people get mad at me. It didn't sound like this in the store. I bring it home. What the hell you doing, man?
Oh, yeah, no.
I'm like,
yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah. I go,
take it back.
Unplug your guitar. Crank the amp up, crank the gain up, whatever you're using. Do you hear noise or buzz? No. All I hear is hiss. I go, yeah. Okay, so it's not the amp. It's not the amp. It's not the amp. Well, what happens? Okay, look, let me give you a lesson here. You're getting noise from your pickup. Get a chair that you can spin around in. Okay? Get an office chair, no arms. You can sit there and spin in a circle until it's the quietest. Done. No, but I get a lot.
That's
of
as
people
universal as change your string gauge.
This is like guitar playing 101 for me.
Yeah.
But they don't get it or understand because they never heard this or never. And it actually kind of baffles me because I'm like, I just grew up in a different era, I think, or something. I don't know. Maybe I find that there's less knowledge. Guitar players are still advanced players now, but there's less technical knowledge about what they're playing through than there ever was.
Or their expectations.
To the point of someone asked me for a tutorial video on how to change their fuse.
Right. I mean, imagine.
A tutorial video on how to change the fuse.
Yeah. Well, when we were growing up, the cats that worked at the music store literally were professionals.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we kind of rode that era where we had been exposed to so much professional effective knowledge. So we are kind of spoiled. I know, like you said, I find the spot. I don't cut a track on a record ever. Even
here, hold on. Wait. Oh, right there.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm just shooting a little stupid video, I find the spot, and if the camera's here and I'm going to play like this, and that's the quietest, well, I'm going to move the camera there now.
Yeah,
right. Because that's just, you got to do it.
Yeah.
But it's a great question. I'm glad, Cabo.
Well, here's the other thing. I'm going to make another comment of emails I get. Well, that's one. First, unplug your cable from your amp and listen to what noise floor it has. Yeah. And if it is clean, other than speaker cable head, that's it, then it's something else. Whether it be EMF or your pedal board's wired poorly or something, it's something else. The other thing on my particular amps,
so sorry,
I have a fused AC socket, meaning it has the little tray that you pop the fuse out in the bottom of the AC socket. People, that's the mains fuse, not the one next to it that says HT fuse.
Yeah.
The mains fuse is in this little pull-out tray because I checked the fuse. The fuse seems good, but it still doesn't power up. Well, that's because the fuse in the pull-out tray is the mains fuse. What pull-out tray? Oh, God.
We have it labeled over the IEC.
Correct. It's labeled over the IEC that says the actual fuse value and the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
The next amp, I'm going to put mains fuse here with pointing arrows.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Or shoot that video.
Open it.
Or shoot that tutorial video.
I need to do that actually. Friedman amps maintenance and care.
Love it.
I'll do that.
That's great. We got a question from the Guitar Guru Network. What's up, Keith? How are you?
Keith.
We can't answer Keith's question.
No.
All right, I guess.
Oh,
he didn't send it as a super chat, so forget about it. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
He said, if you can't play a third power amp and can't access a Friedman, what new amp would you choose to play?
good question. What's the style? So we've got to pick different styles then. But let's pay some tribute. If you want to throw back and go kind of groovy boutique, old school flavor inspiration, you guys have had this guy on your show, Mike Zadie's Dr. Z, makes a wonderful.
Yeah, he makes great amps, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you throw out the next name.
If you can't play one of those, what?
We're not pinned down to style though. Keith, I know you like.
Keith, give me a style. Come on.
Yeah, you like the ripping amplifier. So, I mean, if
all right, wait. You know what? I would say that if you're talking like higher gain rock kind of stuff, I would say the EVH series amps are reasonably cool for a high gain thing. I mean, they're a great price. They have overall, they're a good amp. Might not be your thing. Might be too far. Might be too gainy. It's a little too gainy for me. But
I've been biting my tongue here as you brought that up. I got to tell you, if I go to a show and the band is playing EVHs, I'm good for about 90 seconds, and then I got to leave the room because it is so. I mean, I feel like I walk out like the guy from the Munsters with the top of my head completely sliced off.
Yeah, it can
but for 90 seconds, it's destroying.
It can sound pretty cool. You know,
How about your buddy Mike? I've never met Mr. Soldano, but he's got a new amp out. If you can't have one.
Oh, the new, yeah. If you want to go for it. The new SLO 100 is fantastic. Synergy products with the modules are great. The tone, if you're going more vintagey thing, Tone King. Fantastic and good amps. Morgan has some cool amps. Joe's a friend of mine. I'm forgetting some here along the way here. Oh, Match. You know what? I still love a Matchless. So a Matchless is a great amp. So
okay. There's a couple. Oh my God! I'm so sorry. I'm destroying everybody's ear with that. Okay, so I've definitely had enough to drink. I'm going to try to watch my hands. We don't need to talk with them. There's some couple of bad cats that I like.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? I had a friend come over and said, "Hey, I want you to check out this amplifier." And he owns 2 or 3 third powers, but he had something that he liked, and it did something. You know, it was an amp from the company Rev, and I was not. He brought a couple of other things. He brought a Mezzabarba over, and both were. They had their impressive moments, but of the two, now I don't know what model of Mezzabarba because I know a lot of guys like those. But he had a Rev. Again, I don't know what model, but he ran me through the channels, and one channel is you play the da 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 ba 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 da 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 da, and then another's like this roaring thing. I was impressed. Comes with a foot switch. It was pretty cool.
That's cool.
I don't know if you've heard any of their stuff, but that particular one, I thought this provided some value. Yeah. You know, I have a secret little amp right next to me. Let me see if I can grab this.
I got a good one, Nashville local.
Okay.
For a great amp. It's not going to come at a cheap price. But Todd Sharp.
Yeah.
The Joke 20.
I gave up on trying to bring this out.
What were you bringing out?
Oh, I've had a Baby Marshall practice app. I think it's the GX10 with built-in effects, 2-channel clean and dirty. Oh my God, I have been rehearsing with that since I don't know when it came out, but I've had this thing so long that I mean it's a wonderful little 10-inch grab and go. It never goes anywhere. So it's not a grab and go. Right. It's a put down and stay. But, if you just need to have a little, 350 millisecond delay on there and you want to rip through your 80s hits, it's been perfect for that.
That's cool.
Awesome.
I think we've gone through most of the questions.
Okay.
and and it's getting kind of late. So
Yeah, we're kicking ass on this show.
It's 3 hours. 3 hours in. So why don't you tell folks where they can reach you, Dylana, and order your amps and order your products and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, thank you for that. First, I want to say thank you guys. Dave and I have been kicking around the idea of having me on the show. I think it's been almost 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah,
2 years, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, I mean, hell, a lot's gone on in 2 years, but I'm excited to be here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this has been a blast. I've looked forward. It's been my thing. I've done all the other things in my life, during the week. It's all been normal compared to, this was the big excitement was I wanted to get out here. It's been a great opportunity. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in and who's going to watch, and follow up on this show. This is one of those things where you might work on the car and let this run for a while, and on your.
Of course.
Yeah.
You just let it run like a radio show.
Exactly.
So I'm sure that I've met some new people here through just doing the show. So I'm grateful for you tuning in and you guys for the opportunity for me to meet these folks. So you can find more about Third Power at thirdpower.com. I do still play music, so I have an Instagram, Dylana.shreds at Instagram. I have a Facebook. There is a Dylana Nova Scott Facebook. There's a Third Power Amps Facebook, and there's also an official Third Power Amps Facebook group as well. All these properties that I have, they might have a lot of followers or not so many, depending on kind of their inception point. But it's a cool hang. And, if you reach out, my email is dylana.nova@thirdpower.com. I also have on the website info@thirdpower.com. Either way, that'll come straight to my phone or to my computer, but I'll get right back with you. I'm friendly. I love working with folks. I'm all about inspiration. I'm all about positive energy. So I'm super approachable. I need dealers. I think if I look at all the things that I've got going on all these years in, I don't have enough dealers. And in fact, I have no California dealers. I have nothing west of the Mississippi River. Nothing. So I'd love to. If there's some dealers watching, I make a great product. I'm easy to work with. I do what I say. I take care of you. So if you're looking to add something that's great, hit me up. If you're looking to do special order, you want to take care of somebody, you know what? Give me a call. Let's work something out. Let's take care of your customer. I've got some of the accessories are available on the website. So you can get, I mentioned the Roosevelt Drive. You can buy that on the site. You can buy the MagFrag pickups on the site. You can buy the speaker cabinets on the site. The amplifiers, they tend to go through dealers because there's a little bit more support required and maybe a sale and picking the right one. If you're in an area where I don't have a dealer, I'm not going to force you to seek out a dealer you've never worked with. So if you're in a region that doesn't have a dealer, hit me up. I'll make sure you get taken care of. So there you go.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. Great. Yeah, and I really want to thank you for coming on, Dylana. You're awesome. Just got a great history, and I've heard nothing but awesome things about your products. So hopefully everybody will check them out. Also,
thanks everyone for watching, of course, as usual.
Yeah.
Please hit the subscribe button. We need more subscribers for sure. Mm-hmm. And then, sorry, Mark.
No, I agree with you.
Cutting you off.
No, hit the subscribe button. Please hit the bell for notifications. Also, Sweetwater.com. Check out our sponsor, Sweetwater.com. I'll have a link below. I'll get that in tomorrow because I'm probably going to hit the bed right after this. But
hit the head
and the bed. Hit the head and the bed. But also, our next coming guest, Dave, you want to say who is coming on the 15th? Ian, right? Ian. Sorry. You got me unprepared here.
Okay. From Anthrax?
No.
From the band Anthrax?
No,
Oh.
not Scott Ian, but good choice.
Yes.
I think that will happen. No, actually, there's a band I love from Canada called July Talk. Amazing band, and we're gonna have Ian, the guitar player from July Talk, on next week, or not next week, 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Whatever the date Mark tells me it is.
It's the 15th.
And that's how this works, people.
That's exactly.
Mark tells me the show's on this date, and then I forget, and then he reminds me the day of. I'm like, oh shit. That's how this works.
Exactly. It's very high tech.
And we're going to be happy to have Ian on. And if you don't know who July Talk is, please look up all their amazing videos that they produce. They produce these unbelievable videos for their music all over YouTube, and they're all in black and white, and they all have a artistic vision to them. So I think it's super cool.
Awesome. And then the May 29th, we have Peter Stroud coming from Sheryl Crow's band. So
Awesome.
Looking forward to that. All right, guys, you have a great weekend. Stay healthy. Dylana, hang on 1 second while I hang up. And everybody have a great weekend. Take care.
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. Bye, you guys.
All right.
Bye.